Okay. So, I wasn't going to watch the rest of the Destiny debate because, you know, I feel like I'm just watching somebody else's content. But that's what it's there for. First of all, I'm going to add commentary, write my own commentary. And I feel like I need a win right now. And I feel like Destiny's going to deliver us a win. Everything fucking sucks, dude. And I just want to watch Destiny mop the floor with a MAGA piece of shit. So that's my new motive. So if it gets copyright claimed or taken down or whatever, that's fine. I need a win right now. So here we go. I didn't watch the rest of it last night either. I got sidetracked, and then today, all day today, I've been trying to figure out how a fire spontaneously started at the campground. So need a win. Lock them up. State property. This here private property. State. This is private property. Trey Taylor Crew Tractor. I don't know. The fire, I'll tell you in a second. I don't know what the fuck happened. It didn't damage anything. We're all safe and shit, but it's still wild. Confused me. Also, I'm really cold, and I can't run both heaters while I'm running my 3D printer, so I'm waiting on a print to finish here so I can turn on the other fucking heater.
What you think about when you're born into a fire? Let them burn it out. Sell them to the richest buyer. They wanna let the world decay. They tell us lies and fade away, fade away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. Listen up now, because we're never dropping out. Beat the odds, beat the big house. The brains are bigger than the doubt. We've been thinking for ourselves, never let the truth fade away. This is bigger than ourselves, we won't let the world burn away, burn away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. To play
Man, Susie Wiles, who is Trump's top advisor, basically said we're not. Like, he may threat and he may, his bluster or whatever and saber rattle, but all he plans on doing is blowing up boats until the leader of Venezuela leaves. And if they want to start strikes on land, she said they're going to go through Congress. But she's also been outvoted on things before. Like, she didn't want to, she claimed she was against releasing all the January 6 people. Only the nonviolent ones is what she claimed. So, I don't know. I don't know if you guys saw her tell-all came out. We'll talk about it after this debate, probably.
We were raised to lose the race.
Hey now, I pressed the stop button and you didn't stop. That wasn't my fault, guys. Somebody else.
Hey Daddies, it's me, the Linda Binda from TikTok. I wanted to make this video because I wanted to thank you
I'm just
for
telling you what Susie
watching
Wiles said.
Cold Beer Confessionals with Will Bird. I think that's just incredible. I've watched a few episodes and I'm just like very intrigued. But you know what I'm most intrigued in is Big Daddy's meat stick. I heard that it's very thick, like a good old German sausage. You know,
enjoy the show, Linda Binda.
Linda and her coochie loves that. Oh, never mind. Let's not go there. Anyways, I hope you have a good show and enjoy it as you can. There's a lot of weird things that go on, especially when it comes from the realm of Linda Binda land. So, enjoy the show. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Welcome, everybody. I am Will Bird, and this is the Cold Beer Confessional. Who is the... I already found her. Never mind. So, yeah, a new Vanity Fair article came out. It was basically a tell-all. It seems really weird. So, Susie Wiles, who I kind of picture as like this stone-cold, like political operative, she knows what's going on. She gets people elected. She's behind the scenes. She doesn't like to be in front of the lights and camera, but she has an incredible amount of influence over President Trump. She agreed to do a piece with Vanity Fair and put out a bunch of shit, dude. A bunch of shit that we didn't know about. That she says that Trump claims that she claims Trump has the mentality of an alcoholic, thinking he can do everything, fix everything. He's the only one that can do it, blah, blah, blah. And that's his real mentality. That J.D. Vance is a fucking conspiracy theorist, and that he used to hate Trump. And the only reason he turned Team Trump was because I was politically expedient, right? Meaning like, hey, I have to do this if I want to stay in politics or if I want to move forward to politics. But she also claimed that she would endorse him if he runs in 2028, which was also weird. She put out a bunch of shit. The thing I think I'm most impressed with is this, though. They did Carolyn Levitt dirty, which, I mean, I don't know if this is actually doing her dirty, but check this out. Anyways, the reason I was bringing that up is the Venezuela thing. So basically, she says that Trump's plan on Venezuela is to keep blowing up boats and vessels and putting pressure, economic pressure on Venezuela until the leader just leaves of his own accord, and that if it comes to land warfare, invasion, shit like that, that's a separate issue that they will have to take through Congress, right? They're not going to try to start a war without Congress, allegedly. That's what she said in the article. But then this picture came out from Vanity Fair. Check this out.
When I thought there's nothing that could make me smile, Vanity Fair goes and does this. Jump scare warning. Morning they posted this
I want to remind you. Now listen. I want to remind you. The person in this picture is Carolyn Levitt. And she is only 28 years old. I would understand if this is a 40 or a 50-year-old woman. She's 28. 28. She hasn't even hit 30 yet.
morning they posted this diabolical crop of Satan's mouthpiece. But before I realized it was her, I was like, which elderly actress is this doing actors on actors, and why are they cropping her so closely? Then I went to the next image and I was like, oh my God, Josephine Goebbels. You learned nothing from my critique? This image is telling me is that we have a lot of people that are silently a part of the resistance. Starting with this photographer, the person who edited this crop. We obviously...
So, I have a question because I genuinely don't know this. Okay, I'm going to zoom in for you guys. Are all of these red dots from lip injections? I understand this hard line here is from like some filler that was put into her around her face, right? She's got a very hard, for a 28-year-old, right? We wouldn't expect to see this. But is every dot an injection? Skin like a burlap sack, baby. What the fuck is that? Twitter's mad. They're like, look how they covered Biden's press secretary. Then look how they covered Trump's press secretary. Yeah, here's one. Hold on. Bo Loudon. Black don't crack, by the way. On the left is how Vanity Fair photographed Carolyn Leavitt, the most beautiful White House press secretary in history. On the right is how Vanity Fair photographed Joe Biden's press secretary. The right here is, this right here is why people have lost trust in the media. Why? That's Carolyn's face. Is it because you can see how many layers of foundation on her face and those little injection marks around her lips? We could see it anyways. We have HD TV now, bro. And they included a further back picture, but God, for 28 years old, dude.
They know her injector is a part of the resistance because this is give Edward Scissorhands. We're an NP. Caroline, I know you're watching. Fire your makeup artist. You should be aware of your injection marks and not use a shade that enhances it unless they hate you. I do think it's really beautiful that they captured her orange nose.
That little bit of orange on her nose. How fucking insane is that? Instead of a brown nose, she's got this orange nose streak. God damn, she looks rough, bro. 28.
Instead of brown nosing, chef's kiss. There's gonna be some people being like, well, how about you post a photo of yourself that's that close up and that high def? You have it. This is an unretouched.
And I think Lysandra is like 40.
Picture of me from a photographer. And I'm literally 40. So this is 28. The whole article is actually pretty interesting, but
it even looks like some of the makeup like fell down into these like wrinkles and shit around her eye. Like, look how dirty this looks. What? Was she behind some type of fucking 18-wheeler while I was going down the road? It's just like grime in there.
My takeaway of this is if you're evil, you will age like milk. What do you think? And I thought there's nothing that could make me smile. Vanity.
That is wild right there. Anyways, we're going to do the debate first because, again, I need a win. I'm feeling rough. We need a win. So we're going back to the debate, and I'm going to watch some of it live. I wasn't going to do it, but then I thought, why not? It makes me feel good. Let's do it.
To the Biden DOJ and going, listen, we need to get Trump. He hasn't returned the documents. Here's a great pretext.
We started this last night. We're about an hour in, so we're going to watch the rest of it. I'll stop. We'll talk about it, whatever.
Go get him.
The pretext being that he committed a crime?
No,
That's not what pretextual means.
No, a pretext means that we are engaged in this dialogue with the Trump administration. This can now be recast as Trump refusing to return documents.
Because he did refuse. They stopped communicating. That's why when the FBI went to the Mar-a-Lago place, they found more documents. Some of those we still have never gotten back because Trump flew like 12 boxes of stuff up to his home in Bedminster or whatever.
Okay, look, I think
can say it's bad. If it's true, it's bad.
We can keep going on this, but I think what's, look, let me put it this way.
All you have to do is say if the stuff in the indictment were true and there wasn't a defense, yeah, it's bad.
I think you're a little pissed off that your cases didn't work, right? You were really hoping that you could get Trump, prevent him from running in 24, put the guy away and win the 2024 election. Unfortunately, he was big enough, strong enough, had enough resources, had really good lawyers. He beat you every single time up and down.
So have his
got immunity from the Supreme Court.
lawyers he had initially are disbarred now, so I don't have to call them lawyers anymore.
Most of the lawyers are disbarred. Very good.
You're basically trying to relitigate in front of this
Former lawyers.
guys and go, you know what? If only I, Steve Barnell, had been litigating this, we'd really have gotten him. But damn it, we had incompetent counsel. It all blew up in our
Well, if
face.
anybody would know anything about relitigation, it would be the conservatives that constantly relitigate 2020. That still don't. Do you acknowledge that, for instance, Trump lost the 2020 election?
No, he didn't lose.
Okay, so we're talking about relitigation.
Okay.
Right? I mean, like, you guys don't even accept the outcome of the 2020 election. We're supposed to be a beacon on
Very good.
democracy.
Hold on. Well, okay, so we need to probably say a word about 2020 because apparently, just like in the opening books of the Republic where Socrates has to say laughter, is that an argument? We're getting the sort of knowing ha 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 ha, which needs to be confronted because of its sort of sheer sneering dogmatism wedded to a bit of ignorance. So let me ask you this. And did you see my film 2000 Mules?
I watched the whole thing. Yes.
Okay, let me ask you this.
They had to recall the film, right? Wasn't that a thing? And they got sued for it?
Do you dispute the accuracy of cell phone geo-tracking?
No.
No. If you were to be convinced that in the 2020 election, in the weeks leading up to it, and then again in the period leading up to the recall election in early Jan, that there were a number of individuals, mules.
Yeah, the publisher, 2000 Mules, election conspiracy theory film, issues an apology. Conservative media company behind the film, 2000 Mules, which was allegedly a widespread conspiracy about Democrats until the 2020 election and was embraced by former President Donald Trump, has issued an apology and said it would halt distribution of the film and remove both the film and book from its platform. In a statement posted to their website, Salem Media Group apologized specifically to Mark Andrews, a voter from Georgia falsely depicted illegally voting in 2000 Mules. Like, they ruined a bunch of people's lives. And it was just because their cell phone data put them in the area of voting locations or drop-off boxes or whatever.
Carrying ballots.
It's not accurate enough to say, oh, he went to the ballot box and dropped a ballot. That's not true. But they tried to make you think it was.
And going to 10 or more drop boxes, and this could be demonstrated by cell phone geo-tracking. Would you agree that this is something that needs to be looked into?
Sure, and you did, and found nothing.
No. Oh, wow.
Well, okay, that's not accurate to say. You found two people that you accused of engaged in mule worship. Both of those people, I think, sued you or the production company, and then that's why the film was no longer for distribution or whatever, because those two people were both engaged in affair. One guy, I think, was a father dropping off ballots for his family, and I think the other was a nurse who was dropping off ballots for the nursing home they worked at. Both of those stories were verified to be true. I agree, 2000 Mules was an interesting hypothesis, but it was missing the part two where you actually follow through on the investigation and find the people engaged in muling for ballots. Simply saying,
Right. You just said, hey, there's something weird, we think, going on with this cell phone data. It must be fraud. Some of those people just worked in that area, right? Why would there be a lot of cell phone data traffic, like people carrying their cell phone data, in places where drop boxes were? Because they put the drop boxes in high traffic areas. They put drop boxes where people are already going.
saying that people drove by ballot boxes and not prove a crime.
First of all, okay. The nurse that you're talking about, I've never heard of. I don't even know what you're talking about. That's fully made up. That's out of your ass, basically. There is a case where we have in Georgia by one guy who claims, who by the way is seen in the film dropping off multiple ballots. The guy says that this was legit and he was dropping off ballots for his family, which is allowed. This case is being litigated because the facts of it are rather complex. And I won't go into it right here, also partly because it's being disputed. But
when you say litigated, in a civil manner or a criminal manner?
But the guy...
Well, can you expand on that? In a civil manner or in a criminal manner?
No, it's a lawsuit. It's a civil lawsuit.
Okay, so when you say civil lawsuit, who's suing who for what?
So the alleged mule is suing me and suing the company, claiming that he individually, he's not saying the cell phone geo-tracking is invalid. He's not saying anything shown in the movie is false. He's simply saying what you showed me doing in the film is lawful. And in the film we show...
You called him a mule, like you accused him of being a mule.
Pulling up, jumping out, dropping these ballots, and he's claiming that individual act was lawful. So that's what's being litigated.
Okay, which is important. That's the whole point, right? Yeah, it could be illegal activity, right?
It could be illegal or it could be legal. That's what's being, this is being fought over. But what I'm getting at is no one is disputing the footage in the film. Some of it, you said, there was electronic surveillance. Do you realize that the people who said that this was the most secure election in history never looked at any surveillance in any state? Do you realize that many states which had surveillance turned off their videos before the election so they wouldn't have that surveillance?
So the people that said that it was the most secure election, they monitor hacking and hacking attempts and anybody trying to hack into the system and change ballots or whatever. That's their job. Why would they be looking at security, like security cameras of people standing in line? That's not their job.
That's really strange. Then I feel like Sidney Powell and the Trump admin should have probably chose some of their claims on places that didn't have surveillance, because the ones that they did, they intentionally obfuscated the surveillance cameras in order to lie about what they were showing. Like, for instance, the ballot box.
Yes, they only showed you the clip. When that, okay, so back then, I actually was kind of a Trump supporter. I mean, like, I was like, what the fuck's going on? I thought, these people are not going to risk everything, right? These are people we know. These people we trust. They have careers. They have families. They're not going to come out and just fucking lie to us. But they were. They were. And when we first saw the boxes of ballots under the table, everybody's like, what the fuck? What's going on? Why would they have ballots like fucking tucked away? Then we found out the boxes are actually the boxes that the votes come in. And then they show us just this short little clip, but if you go find the entire video, we can trace those ballots. They came in, they were checked in, They were going to count them. They went home or they're going to go home for the day. They called them back. They pulled them back out and counted them again. Everything was legal. Every bit of it was legal. But they show you this small little clip of like, where'd those ballots come from? We have no idea. They just popped up. No one knows where they came. They don't show you the full context ever.
This is underneath the table.
Look, why don't we just stay with what... there's a
Okay, we can say with your case. In your case, it's been 4 years. Nothing has been resolved about this. It's a case about defamation. It sounds like that's what it is.
In the
It's
film
not a criminal case at all.
in the film I made, we didn't talk about boxes under the desk, okay? We relied on two types of evidence, both of which, on the face of it, are valid. First, cell phone geo-tracking, and we showed that there were, in Georgia alone, in Fulton County, in that area, 242 mules, alleged mules, who went to 10 or more drop boxes.
He had to add that alleged in.
In the
I know. That's what I want to see. I need a win here. I want to see Destiny annihilate somebody.
period of the election. Those same people, by the way, did not go to those drop boxes any other time because this was compared against a geo-tracking of an earlier date.
To be clear, real quick, when you say went to those drop boxes, all you have are those people passed by those drop boxes.
No,
that's
no.
it. You don't know what they did there. You have no footage of them dropping anything off. You don't know who these people.
Wrong, and wrong again.
And it's randomized, right? They didn't get your data. They didn't get Jim Smith's data and say, okay, well, Jim Smith voted 16 times, or this is Jim Smith, or whatever. They got randomized data, right? A company can't go and just pull your geolocation. They got randomized data. All they know is a number of people did this, and this one random person did this, and this one, they have no idea who that is.
Wait, you have footage of those people dropping ballots off at... Also, notice for the one guy that's suing you, or your company or whatever, notice that you're talking about footage of him dropping ballots off at a single box. That's not even the claim. 2,000 mules is not 2,000 homing missiles to one box. It's supposed to be people dropping them off at multiple boxes. I didn't see footage of any of that, of a single person. And that would have been the strongest thing. If you could show one person, one time, visiting multiple ballot boxes, I'd be like, oh, that's pretty crazy. I didn't see a single example of that. Do you have a single example of that?
Yeah, I do.
Why didn't you show it?
It actually is shown in the movie. It is shown in the movie.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
You see the same guy in two different outfits.
What they claimed was the same guy, by the way.
The same box, but on two different occasions, dropping in multiple ballots.
Why would you...
All right, so the same guy went to the same guy went to the same box, which is not what Destiny asked for, on 2 different days and dropped ballots. What if he brought his and his wife's, and the next day he brought his mom's and his dad's?
Use geo-tracking data to see a guy going through multiple ballot boxes and only look at his behavior on one ballot box when the central claim was the mule was going to multiple ballot boxes.
I'll tell you why. It's like this. It's like you have a serial killer who goes to 5 different homes, and you find 5 dead bodies in those homes. His cell phone places him at those homes at those exact times of those 5 murders. However, only one of those homes has surveillance. And in that one case, you can look at the cell phone data, you can see when he entered the home, you can then compare it against the surveillance video, but you only have one video. Now, in the 2020 election, even in the places that had surveillance, they had surveillance in approximately 1 out of 10 or fewer drop boxes. So the truth of it is, you could have a cell phone moving from Dropbox to Dropbox, but only one of those drop boxes has surveillance.
In October 2022, Atlanta citizen Mark Andrews sued Dinesh D'Souza, True the Vote, Greg Phillips, Catherine Engelbrecht, and Salem Media Group for defamation, conspiracy, and intrusion on seclusion. The film accused him of being a mule who allegedly harvested ballots as part of a fraud ring. Although the film had blurred his face, the film's trailer and promotional stills used his full image. A state investigation found that Andrews was legally dropping off ballots for himself, his wife, and their 3 adult children, who all lived at the same address. The state exonerated Andrews a few days before the movie even premiered. On May 31st, 2024, Salem Media Group, which helped produce and distribute D'Souza's film and book, released a public apology to Andrews, saying it had relied on representations from D'Souza and True the Vote, Salem, and True the Vote. Salem also disavowed the book and the film and withdrew from the distribution. In a lawsuit, Salem filed against its own insurer for not covering costs related to Andrews' lawsuits. Salem revealed it had settled Andrews' suit for a significant amount. The apology and disavowal came as part of the settlement. Andrews dismissed his claims against Salem only, but he's still suing Dinesh and True the Vote and all them. But the suit, which names multiple defendants, remained ongoing. On December 1st, 2024, D'Souza posted a statement which included, "We recently learned that the surveillance videos used in the film may not have actually been correlated with the geolocation data." So he himself is like, okay, well, we had this cell phone data and we had this security footage, and this is the only place that we had security footage. So he matched it all up, but he had to issue a public statement that said, oh, well, we actually learned that the cell phone data and the security film were probably not even correlated with each other. Like, what the fuck?
surveillance.
I think I would say the analogy
This is all
is
described. The analogy. This is all.
the analogy is telling because you're saying there's 5 murders, but you don't even have any proof of malfeasance happening in any of these ballot boxes. Also, when you say there's not surveillance on them, you keep saying that like that's exceptional. Surveillance wouldn't even really tell you anything, right? A guy could show up in a hooded mask with everything covered, and there's nothing illegal about that, and drop a ballot off, and you would know nothing about this person. How would surveillance even help in this case?
Well, it would help to establish that the cell phone, because the problem with the cell phone is my cell phone is moving from box to box to box. If I gave my cell phone to my wife, then she could be going from box to box.
Is moving near box to box to box, right? And these boxes we've already established are in high traffic areas. You could be going to the restaurant beside the box, and then maybe you got to go across town to a post office near the box, and then maybe you're headed back to work and there was a box near there. You know what I mean? You're going near box to box to box. Why would that be normal? Because they're in high traffic areas.
Box, but it would be with my cell phone. The advantage of the surveillance, it can establish who is the guy who is showing up at the box. Now look, here's the problem, okay? When you do
Again, that's what he just said. You heard what he just said. The advantage of the video is we can establish who was at the box. First of all, his own post from December 1st of 2024, it says he cannot do that. They're not correlated. Second of all, they have no idea who these people are. They got randomized data that said one person went all these places. A second person went all these places. And you can buy that randomized data. Technically, right? It doesn't include who the person is, what their phone number is, you know, their family makeup, nothing about them. But it shows that we have at least one person that went here, here, and here. It's how they set up for like high traffic things like billboards and where to put ads and shit like that.
Geo-tracking, you get a cell phone ID. But the cell phone ID is not the phone number. And we have no ability, and neither do you, to take a cell phone ID and identify the person associated with that cell phone. The only people who can do that is law enforcement. And so we asked Democratic officials
randomized data.
Georgia, in Arizona, in Milwaukee, in Philadelphia, in Detroit, to look.
We asked Democratic officials in Georgia? Georgia under Republican control, Georgia?
Into this. Not surprisingly, the Democrats were like, nah, we're not really interested in doing this. We're like, just talk to the mules. Maybe there is a very plausible explanation. This guy just happens to take a really long walk around election time. He likes to stop at drop boxes. He smokes a cigarette at each drop box, and that explains why he's pausing at these drop boxes.
Or near those. I mean, sometimes it's within like fucking, it depends on the resolution. Sometimes it's like 30 or 40 feet away. You could be 2 stores down, right?
Maybe there is an explanation. We'd like to know what it is. The movie can take you as far as the film can go, but to now demand, why don't you do the investigation? We're not able to do that, and we said so in the film. So what I'm getting at is, this is not a case where there's nothing here. There is a lot here.
There's literally, how could you even get that information?
Well, the answer is the cell phone data. You just take the cell phone data. You have a list of 2,000 or more cell phone IDs. You just get the actual phone numbers of everybody. You go visit.
No, I'm asking, how would you get the phone numbers? How would you translate this from ID to phone number to person?
That can be done very easily. That's done in every burglary.
Law enforcement would have to do that, right? I wish Destiny had this quote on hand saying, in December of 2024, you said that the surveillance videos used in the film may not have actually been correlated with your geolocation data. You had to admit that. And again, I apologize to Mr. Andrews. Let's see if we can pull up that post. Archived. Sorry, I'm trying to use Wikipedia sources here. It was a gigantic nothing burger. The whole thing was. It's insane this guy's still running with it. You know what I mean? 404 not found, so they took it down. But there's an archive link. Hopefully that works. Yes, statement on 2,000 mules. As those who have seen the film or read the book know, 2,000 Mules is based on cell phone geolocation data collected and reviewed by True the Vote. An analysis is basically like Dinesh D'Souza threw True the Vote on the bus, if I remember this correctly. An analysis of this data revealed highly suspicious patterns of certain cell phones which were recorded in the location of 10 or more drop boxes. This data was the premise of the film. During the production of this film, as a supplement to the geolocation data, True the Vote provided my team with ballot drop box surveillance footage that had been obtained through open records requests. We were assured that the surveillance videos had been linked to geolocation cell phone data, such that each video depicted an individual who had made at least 10 visits to drop boxes, near drop boxes. I swear they need to put that shit in there, but it doesn't sound as good. Indeed, it is clear from the interviews within the film itself that True the Vote was correlating the videos to the geolocation data. We recently learned that surveillance videos used in the film may not have actually been correlated with geolocation data. I know that the film and my book create the impression that these individuals were mules that had been identified as suspected ballot harvesters based on their geo-tracked cell phone data. While all of these individuals' images were blurred and unrecognizable, one of the individuals has since come forward publicly and has initiated a lawsuit over the use of his blurred image in the film and in the book. I owe this individual's Mark Andrews an apology. I now understand that the surveillance videos used in the film were characterized on the basis of inaccurate information provided to me and my team. So even D'Souza is backing off this whole claim. While right now in the debate, he's trying to push it hard, right? Nope. He's backing off of it. Inaccurate information provided to me and my team. If I had known then that the videos were not linked to geolocation data, I would have clarified this and produced and edited the film differently. We operated in good faith and in reliance on True the Vote. We continue to have confidence in their work, in the basic message of 2000 Mules, namely that the 2020 election was not the most secure election in history, far from it, and that there was systemic election fraud sufficient to call the outcome into question. We also continue to have faith that True the Vote's underlying geolocation data and analysis uncovered highly suspicious cell phone travel patterns, including a significant number of cell phone IDs that were recorded at more than 10 Dropbox locations. While the video in the film created an incorrect inference as to Mr. Andrews, the underlying premise of the film still holds true. Indeed, the accuracy of the general proposition of 2000 Mules was publicly confirmed recently by disclosure of a leading Democratic organizer who admitted to an undercover journalist that the premise of 2000 Mules is accurate. Okay. Again, I apologize to Mr. Andrews. I make this apology not under the terms of a settlement agreement or other duress, but because it is the right thing to do, given what we have now learned. While I do not believe Mr. Andrews was ever identified by the film or book, I am sorry for any harm he believes he and his family have suffered as a result of 2000 Mules. So even he's like, hey, they just gave this to me. And I thought the cell phone data was linked to the surveillance video, but now we're finding out that cell phone data and surveillance video were not even correlated to each other.
Burglary and murder case in the country right
the
now.
burglaries have something called probable cause of a crime being committed. There's no world where law enforcement could start pulling phone numbers and data from phones off of a wild hunch where
It was not more people. You're just wrong. It was not more voters than people that live here. That's not true in any way, shape, or form. They were using inaccurate numbers when they spread that conspiracy. It's been searched and searched and searched and searched and searched, and every time it comes up with bullshit.
no other information is shown probable cause, meaning that it's likely that a crime has been committed here. There's no world where a judge should be signing off on warrants or subpoenas pulling information like that.
So this is a good question. You're saying that if the prosecutor, let's just say in Fulton County, were to go to a judge and say, we have identified in Fulton County 242 individuals who in the period leading up to the 2020 election or the recall election.
The claim was there were 205,000 more votes than there are voters in the 2020 election in Pennsylvania. False. This analysis is based on incomplete data, according to the Pennsylvania Department of State. A misleading claim about election results from the Republican group of Republican state lawmakers in Pennsylvania circulating widely on social media a week before Congress meets to reaffirm Joe Biden's decisive presidential win. The claim emerged and released the Republican state rep, Frank Ryan, and several others Monday. A comparison of official county election results to the total number of voters who voted on November 3rd, 2020, as recorded by the Department of State, shows a difference of that 6,962,607 total ballots were reported as being cast, while the DOS Sure System records indicate that only 6,760,230 total voters actually voted. The claim then spread to several right-wing websites and social media influencers, including Trump, whose tweet claiming that Pennsylvania had 205,000 more voters than voters was retweeted over 117,000 times. However, these claims rely on incomplete data, according to Wanda Murin, communications director of the Pennsylvania Department of State, who called the lawmakers' release obvious misinformation. It was not immediately clear where the numbers cited in this release originated, and Ryan did not respond to a call seeking comment on Tuesday. However, the apparent reference to Sure statewide uniform registry of electors in Pennsylvania points to state data on the voting history of registered voters, which some large counties have not finished uploading yet. These counties, which include Philadelphia, Allegheny, Butler, and Cambria, would account for a significant number of voters, and it's not been uploaded yet. The numbers certified by the counties, not the uploading of voter histories into the SURE system, determines the ultimate certification of election by the secretary. The number certified by Pennsylvania counties in November shows that more than 6.9 million voters cast ballots in the 2020 election, electing Biden the winner by more than 80,000 votes. Social media users in recent weeks have also made similar claims that were more votes than voters, more votes counted than registered voters in battleground states and other key cities. These claims are easily debunked. In Pennsylvania, for example, there were nearly 7 million votes cast. The total number of registered voters in 2020 was over 9 million. 7 million is smaller than 9 million. This obvious misinformation put forth by Rep. Ryan and others is the hallmark of so many of the claims that were made about this year's presidential election. When exposed to even the simplest examination, courts at every level have found that these and similar other conspiratorial claims to be wholly without basis.
Election have been identified as going directly to 10 or more drop boxes. By the way a cell phone moves is it doesn't move in a fluid pattern. It moves and stops and moves again and stops. You can actually tell when the phone paused. So we're talking about people who are stopping at the drop box. And if you go to a judge and
When I drank High Life. I like Miller High Life. A lot of people hate it, but I like High Life. That was my shit. But I quit drinking. I used to drink way too much.
say, we need a warrant to be able to identify these people and merely verify from them that their behavior was lawful. According to you, that warrant would be impossible to obtain because there's no probable cause. Knowing something about the law myself, I would say that warrant would be extremely easy to obtain.
What you described isn't even an illegal activity.
The election fraud is illegal.
It's a champagne of beers, baby. Miller High Life. I really liked, towards the end, I was drinking High Life Light because I kept getting bad headaches. I guess I was just getting older and couldn't do hangovers as much. High Life Light's good too. But when they don't use, a lot of places around here don't have it on tap. So when I do go out and drink beer, it's usually Miller Light.
No, you don't have any evidence of election fraud. You have evidence of people walking near drop boxes, which also are near post offices, which are also could be people mailing any number of things, right?
Let me pose a case.
Exactly. They're also near post offices. They're also near businesses. They're also near downtown shit you might go to, right? You might have to go to the courthouse. You might have to do this. You might have to get your tags registered. That's where these things are, where people actually walk. So it's not weird to be near 10 different drop boxes in a day if you're running errands in town. Maybe this is the day that you go drop your votes and you register your car and you got to go pay your fucking taxes and you had to go talk to the sheriff about, an insurance claim and get an accident report. Those are all places that drop boxes would be.
To you. These 4 kids in Idaho are found dead. And this guy, Koberger, you see his cell phone in the vicinity of the houses, and he makes a big circle around the house, and that's the geo-tracking. He was there at the time, or around the time that crime was committed. Are you saying that a single judge would go, we don't even have any evidence he did it?
No, I think that would be good for probable cause that a crime was committed because we have 4 dead bodies. It's likely a crime committed.
That's
there.
right.
We have no evidence of voter fraud from any of these mailing boxes, so there is no probable cause to speak of. Again,
You just found somebody traveled here and you don't like the election results. Someone traveled here and I don't like the election results. You started with a dead body in your other one. Imagine if you would have started with, oh my God, we have 6 million votes from dead people. Then you could have said cell phone data and surveillance. But you started with, we just don't like the election outcome.
Right, but a crime.
Right, but when an investigation is underway, judges are very willing to give law.
They all are. They all are. And I think he's not a dumb guy. I don't think he is, right? He's good at fucking talking, right? He's good at getting his point across. He's very bad faith in his arguments, but he's usually not a debate. Instead, it's just him doing his show. But I think they have to be because MAGA's so fucking dumb. They're just cheering on one side. They don't need any substance, right? They just need the argument made, and then they go, yeah, I agree, right? Oh, just like a serial killer with dead bodies. The drop boxes are the bodies or whatever. And that's how they make their living. That's how he puts his kids through school or whatever, pays for his fucking third house.
Tools to discover if a crime has been committed. I'll give you my own case, a very good example. So in my own case, somebody tipped off the FBI that I made this contribution. The contribution could have been legal.
No, it couldn't have been, right?
Why? Why not?
Because it exceeded the federal...
It couldn't have been legal. You're only allowed to go up to 20,000. You did a 25,000. Yeah, you couldn't have been. You're allowed to go. So imagine saying a cop radared me for doing 75 in a 60. I could have been doing it legally. And you're like, no, you couldn't have. You were above the limits. Why? Well, your limit was $20,000. You made a $25,000 donation. So it could have been legal. Okay.
Election commissions.
There are actually legal ways to make a contribution. How do you think Soros gives millions of dollars? I just gave the wrong way.
Because Soros doesn't give
They
millions
go through PACs.
of dollars to candidates or PACs. He gives them to things called super PACs, the hybrid
Right.
401 or 403 C5s or whatever, C4s or whatever, like the different organizations there, but not to a candidate directly. You give money to another person and tell them to give money to a candidate because you know that you'd be bypassing the contribution limit. You're never allowed to do that.
All I'm trying to say is that a tip causes the FBI to assign $100,000 to investigate my case. And this is normal. When law enforcement suspects that there's a crime that's been committed, they haven't proven it, they think it might be.
But there's a crime to speak of there, the exceeding of the campaign contribution limits. Well, you're talking about dropping ballots off at a drop box.
Can you think of a good reason for somebody, let alone...
Imagine calling the FBI and saying, I saw a guy dropping ballots at a ballot drop-off box. Are you supposed to call in the cavalry? Oh, yeah, my whole audience hated that I didn't go along with the 2,000 mule shit.
242 people to go to...
They're like, but what about,
10 or more drop boxes.
How many cell phones data did you go through?
Millions.
So of millions of cell phones, could 243 go by where 10 drop boxes are?
Go from one drop box
Go from one drop box to
10 or more.
Sure.
Look, we're not talking about...
Do you understand the odds that you're talking about of millions of cell phones where there are post offices or post drop boxes near these locations? These are all post office drop.
So they pulled millions and millions of data, and they found 200 of them happened to go by several drop boxes in a day. How do we know the motherfuckers weren't driving Uber and picking other people up at busy locations? You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't prove a crime happens. Delivery driver. Yeah, maybe they work for fucking Amazon. Who knows?
Drop boxes, right? Could I conceive of 240 people out of millions?
Bro, I'm going to give you a life hack here. If you ever feel like, man, my job fucking sucks, okay? Go to Reddit and look up the community there for Amazon delivery drivers. Holy fuck. Will your job look a whole lot better?
Of cell phones dropping off stuff at drop boxes during an election season? Sure, I guess. That's a very low number of people who have to get those millions of phones you pulled.
There is no reason for anyone to go to 2 drop boxes.
No reason at all. You've never in your life gone to 2 drop boxes before.
We're not talking about showing up to City Hall and turning in your ballot. We are talking about these so-called mail-in drop boxes. Look, even if I were taking the ballots of my family members, am I going to say,
I can think of a reason immediately, right? Okay, I'm going to take my families and my parents. Okay, my parents live across town. While I'm in town doing something else, I'm dropping mine, right? But my parents live across town. So when I swing by and pick others up, I just run to the closest drop back immediately.
Put one ballot in one box and then drive to the next box and a third box, and remember that we're setting a high burden.
Could they just be mailing stuff?
What?
Could they just be dropping off stuff to mail?
You can send in your ballot by the mail.
No, it doesn't have to be a ballot. It could be anything, right?
The mail-in drop boxes are only for ballots. They're not for anything else. They're not intended for the post mail.
Right, but they're near post office and mail drop boxes and city services and utility companies. They're near these things that you could...
Put your utility bill in there. These are drop boxes set up for ballots. And what I'm saying is that it makes sense. All right, maybe by accident you went to 2 boxes, okay? You went to one and put in your ballot. You went to a second and had a smoke. Once you set the bar at 10 drop boxes, you defy credulity. There's no reason to do that. And that's why in itself, it is...
They're in high traffic area. Okay. So, let's say you do some type of job outside and it's in town, okay? And I say, oh, this guy looks really suspicious of this cell phone data because he was near 5 different government buildings throughout the day. What's he doing? Scoping them out? He's going to plant a bomb? Is he planning an assassination? But your job is just in high traffic areas in the middle of town. Let's say you're fucking, I don't know, you're out taking pictures or checking the crosswalks or trimming bushes around town. That's where all these drop boxes are, right? Near the courthouse and near the post office and near the UPS store and near the post office drop boxes. Like, obviously, out of millions of people in that area, you're going to find some people who cross the path. Not that you went in, not that you made a drop, not that you dropped a ballot, none of that. They can't prove any of that. Just you were near multiple drop boxes. some of the data, I'm trying to remember, but I think we went through 2,000 Mules. Some of the data on the lower resolution thing was like 50 fucking feet, dude. You could have just drove by anywhere near. And they would write it off as, oh, that's low resolution data, and we can't tell how long they stayed there. Yeah, they could have just been driving by and their cell phone pinged. They could have been in the other lane on the other side of a median, going in the opposite direction, driving by and their cell phone pinged. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Suspicious behavior. Now, are you saying that in all the 242 cases, am I saying that all of them were equally guilty of the same type of fraud? I don't know. But I'm saying that there's very good reason to investigate further. And if this were done...
Let's say that I grant all that. Let's say that I say there's very good information to investigate these people for crimes despite having no evidence of crime being committed and no evidence of what these people were doing at the drop boxes. You don't think that there wasn't very good reason to investigate Donald Trump for committing crimes relating to the retention of classified material when he's showing classified material, people saying I could have declassified it, but I didn't?
I'm not saying that there's no good reason to investigate.
I'm not saying that.
I'm not saying that. I'm not
so
saying...
then the investigations of Trump were done for a good reason.
Well, it could have been done...
You said that Biden said it just earlier. This was in the last show we watched just earlier. You said it was all because Biden sicked the DOJ on him because he had to make a crime up so Trump couldn't be president. But now he's like, I'm not saying there wasn't a good reason to investigate.
It could have. Generally, when there's an investigation, there is some plausible basis for it.
Sure.
But I think
like
you would
retention of classified material, yeah.
But I think you would be naive if you're saying, oh, you know what? Had this not been Trump, but let's say had it been Bill Clinton, they would have done exactly the same thing.
What about Hillary Clinton?
Well, I'm saying Bill Clinton because he was the president.
What about Hillary Clinton? She was running for president. We talked about her emails for years.
Talking about her emails is in the public...
She was under investigation for a long time.
Domain is one thing.
The FBI investigated her email usage.
And what I'm getting at is, okay, the Hillary crime is... I haven't even brought that up. I'm not talking about that. If I were to prosecute a crime right now, and I don't know if it could be pushed ahead, but the Russia collusion hoax, which began with Hillary...
Oh, God. Destiny knows everything about the Russian collusion shit. He's got how many people went to jail, what their crimes were, who they were, how they were linked to Russia. He knows everything about it.
White House itself involved all the top officials of the Obama administration, was executed entirely intentionally.
You know, this whole thing falls apart with a simple question as well that you're not going to answer.
What's your simple question?
Yeah.
What is it?
Why wouldn't they publicize the hoax before Trump won the election?
Why did
they wait to talk about this until after Trump won the election? Why wouldn't they do it before, like they did with Hillary's emails?
Well, this is...
He said he wouldn't answer it. Wait.
Why did they wait to talk about this until after Trump won the election? Why wouldn't they do it before, like they did with Hillary's emails?
Well, this is...
Like, you know, Hillary probably lost the election because
Got him.
Comey made like 3 announcements. Comey's like a blog poster every day. We found a new laptop with more Hillary's emails. But Donald Trump was completely under wraps until after Trump won the election? What a horrible hoax.
Well, the answer is really obvious. I'm only speechless because of the sort of... It's so obvious the answer to that question. Hillary was 100% sure she was going to win the election.
Oh, okay. Why not make it 200% sure by bringing this up before the election? Even if that's true. Let's say Hillary's 100% sure. There's got to be somebody on her team that's like, I got 5% doubt. Why not? That's not the way you would do this hoax.
Hillary had it made. All the odds were in her favor. She was leading it tremendously in the polls. In fact, Frank Luntz just reflects the popular...
Actually, the polls got pretty close towards the end.
On the day of the election,
surprisingly,
tweets, Hillary Clinton will be the next president of the United States. She believed it. I would think Trump believed it. Everybody believed it. And when Trump won, these people couldn't believe it. And they were essentially in so now what mode. So here's what I'm getting at. Do I have to explain why they had the meeting at the White House?
He doesn't even know what the fuck to say.
October as opposed to July. You seem to admit they had the meeting. You seem to admit that all the deep state guys were there. You seem to admit that Hillary cooked up this false dossier, and this was used for at least 2 years, maybe more, to cripple the presidency of Trump. Is that a crime?
So, well, the problem is it's not a crime to investigate things. It was a crime, for instance, when Donald Trump fired Comey to obstruct the investigation into all of the colluding Russian people around him, which was probably criminal in nature. But of course, Donald Trump will never be convicted of any crime now that the Supreme Court has said that the president apparently can't commit crimes. We do know that people were convicted around Trump for things related to colluding with Russian or Russian officials. Manafort was a great example of that. Roger Stone.
Yeah, it would just be refreshing to see a major Republican pundit be like, hey, what he's doing right now is fucked up. I don't agree with that. Like, that's crazy. It was just refreshing to see other Republican politicians talk about the Rob Reiner thing and be like, that he shouldn't do that. That's crazy.
colluded with Lucifer when it came to leaking the hacks about the Hillary email address and all of the emails that she supposedly, had on her server and everything else. But to talk about this collusion hoax with Obama and the bogus stuff that Tulsi Gabbard has released, all of this stuff had been investigated by our deep state operatives for like a year leading up to the election. Do you agree that Russia was intervening and interfering with all of the media cycles and everything in our country? Do you agree that Russia had companies, the Internet Research Agency was one of which Manafort turned out indictments about, that he was influencing the election in the United States? Do you agree with that, or do you disagree with that?
Well, that is not what the...
He wasn't changing votes, right? Russia wasn't going in and being like, plus 10 votes for Trump, plus 20 votes for Trump over here. But they were heavily trying to sway everything towards Trump, or at least anti-Hillary, as much as they could in social media and bot farms and paying people and everything, every aspect of media. When they could get a hold of Americans, that's what they're trying to do.
Russia collusion hoax was
Well, but do you
about
agree or
at all.
disagree with that?
Well, I agree with it in the blasé sense that I think that because the United States is the most important country in the world.
So it was the
Hold
largest
on, hold
disinformation
on.
campaign in all of foreign interference
Hold on
history.
a second.
Was
We
what
cannot
the
go through an
United States-
election without the following countries: China, India, Israel, Qatar, Russia.
Sure, can you give a
many
single
others.
example of China, Israel, or Qatar intervening in our election atmosphere the same way that Russia did?
I would say that the Qatar influence is far greater and far more pernicious.
Give me an example.
Hold on, I'll give you an example. So in the case of Russia, the attempt was an
Give us an
extremely
example.
clumsy attempt to influence social media posts by bots and other...
So it wasn't
Hold on,
clumsy. They were literally
wait,
organizing
interrupting
protests
me.
in the
Hold on.
United States, and they had to come
If
to
I-
here.
Yes. So some people went to pro-Trump, anti-Hillary protests that were literally organized in Russia as if they were American, right? As if they were American organizers. They organized protests and people showed up to them. And the whole organization of it, the timing, the getting of the permits, everything was from somebody in Russia. Like, it was insane.
Some of the largest GOP accounts, 10_GOP, over 200,000 followers, was ran by Russians.
Qatar, let's look at what Qatar has done. I
Okay.
read a report that Qatar put $1 billion into Georgetown University, a single institution. Qatar buys political science departments. Qatar has invested heavily in the U.S. media. If you want to influence an election, you don't think it's better to influence it through mass...
Well, we want an example. It's not an example like they invested in a college. They invested in media organizations. We can show that what Russia was doing, right? Yes, they invested, but also they ran this bot farm. They were running this. They were doing these sobs. They were coming up with conspiracy theories. They were claiming to release this and making memes and everything.
Massive media outlets that reach tens of millions of people. Yes. So Qatar's influence, I mean, again, if you can seriously contend that Russia was the leading influencer of the election, I think you're extremely naive.
Okay, so then let's say first of all, you have no evidence, but we'll say
No
that I grant you
evidence.
that.
Well, I
Okay,
have the
let's say that I
evidence
just
of the
agree with you.
The evidence is that you claim they invested in a college and you claim they invested in U.S. media companies. They invest all over the place, right? With their sovereign wealth fund. It's invested everywhere. Trump spread lies about Helene last year. Yeah, I went through Helene. Like, I live in Northeast Tennessee, not North Carolina, but just across the mountain from Asheville, and our shit got wiped the fuck out. My camper was floating. The campground where we stay at was completely fucking demolished. And Trump came in, and they started this whole bullshit spin that Trump was putting everybody up in hotels, and the problem was solved. And donations just flatlined because Trump came and took care of it. One thing that someone pointed out the other day that I didn't think about until someone pointed it out was that Trump had people there when he was in Asheville, and everybody was mad at insurance companies for not paying out, right? And Trump had people come up on stage, and he said, name them. Name your insurance company. And these people on the national news named their insurance companies, and he set it up like he was going to look into this. He was going to go after them. He was going to make these people pay. He was going to make them do something, right? Nothing. Of course he wasn't going after insurance corporations. But he said, we need to name those companies. We need to hear it. I don't care. Say it out loud. Because the first lady that was going to say her insurance company, she didn't know if she's allowed to. She was kind of standoffish. She's like, no. Say it. We need to hear this. Say, what insurance company do you have? Name the names, because we're going to fix this. Nothing. Then FEMA, Trump's FEMA started posting as if this lady just got an apartment because Trump showed up, but she was in the system for like a year and a half or some shit. Like, it was crazy.
Qatar was influencing U.S. politics. Who was the guy who just got a $400 million jet from Qatar and just agreed to give them a security?
Yeah, the oil market collapsed today. The fucking oil market collapsed today.
Insurance the same as we would to a NATO ally and is allowing them to train fighter pilots in the United States.
So
Donald Trump, you didn't know. What did Biden get from Qatar? What did Biden get from Qatar?
You actually think you're making a good point by leapfrogging from the topic we were discussing, which is, you start out with a claim. Russia was unique in trying to influence the election. I make the obvious point, who's not trying to get a favorable outcome for their country? We know Ukraine was. Why do you think Ukraine was so
involved? The
involved?
difference is that I'm giving facts. When you say other countries advocate for themselves, you're allowed to do that. There is a process by which you declare with FARA, the Foreign Agent Registration Act, you declare that you are spending money in the United States to do this. Russia did not do that. They used subversive means. So, for instance, Tenet Media was a recent example that was uncovered. The FBI said there were some 100+ other organizations doing this. And if you read the Manafort indictments, you can see that there were agents operating companies in the United States that were wholly owned by Russia, pretending to be Americans, that were organizing protests, organizing rallies.
So
and,
that is,
and
yes.
That is your,
social
so
media.
wait,
That's the examples that I've given. That are later
so
nothing for Qatar or anything else. Yeah.
your case, such as it is against Russia.
Let me see. We'll pause this and we'll be right back. Hold on. I'm sure he did. The oil market was in free fall earlier. I haven't checked on it since then, but I'm sure he talked about it.
Great question.
If oil is so cheap, why aren't they stuffing the strategic oil reserve to the brim?
Well, the oil market crash
there it is. There it is.
Officially upon us, and everyone wants to know, Mr. Global, what now? Unfortunately, most of the what now is up to OPEC, since we've basically handed control of our energy.
So what this means is we're going to have cheap gas. It's going to destroy domestic production. And when domestic production shuts down, when they start shutting down refineries and factories and pipelines and rigs, it takes years sometimes to get these things opened back up. So when OPEC does whatever OPEC does and they decide they want more money for their shit and it shoots up like a fucking rocket and we're paying $5 a gallon again, it'll take a long time to get our shit going again. This destroyed. There's a fine line between how cheap you want. Trump just thinks cheaper gas better, right? But those jobs, we're fucked on the jobs numbers already, right? Unemployment went on up. But those jobs are somebody's real livelihood. And when it the bottom drops out of it, those jobs are gone and they can't just turn them back on, right? You just don't open a refinery back up because oil's up to such and such a barrel.
To Saudi Arabia, yes. Most of this stuff you already know. Lots and lots of job losses are coming in the oil and gas industry. We're about to lose a lot of rigs. And for you old oil and gas guys that don't think $55 is a crash, I would remind you that $55 in 2025 is $43 in 2020. We are absolutely in a crash, and it's getting worse by the day. I think the biggest concern is, will we lose any refineries? And I'm talking about refineries outside of California. I don't think we will, but if we do, it's going to be really bad when oil prices come back. And they will come back as soon as Saudi Arabia has caused all the destruction they want to cause to our industry. They'll cut oil production and send
down to 407 rigs. And the day Trump took office, 482. We're down to 407.
To $150 a barrel. I mean, when will that happen? A year? I don't know, but it's going to happen.
Drill, baby, drill, right here in America, right?
Probably, I would say almost definitely before the end of the Trump administration. But I can tell you this, if the dollar regains any strength, if any progress is made in Russia and Ukraine, and we stop stealing tankers and Iran stops stealing tankers, if any of the geopolitical stuff happening around the country calms down, it's going to be 10 times worse. It's going to be a bloodbath. Well, it's already a bloodbath. It's going to be a bigger bathtub. Lots of big companies are going to buy up a lot of small companies unless they go bankrupt. And if they go bankrupt, they'll buy them then. And when everything comes back, there will be fewer big companies controlling everything, which is really bad for us. And I'm not sure when, but this is going to cause natural gas prices to rise. As oil production begins to decline, EIA is predicting 700,000 barrels a day of declining oil production next year in the United States. I don't think it'll be that much, but if it is, that's a lot of natural gas off the market as well, which is going to cause natural gas prices to climb even more. So that's what happens next. As far as how it all works out, that's up to OPEC, because it's out of our hands now.
I hope somebody's tracking farmer suicides.
Well, the oil market crash is
God damn, that looks bad. And $55 a barrel, like he said, was $43 a barrel in 2020. Like, it's not great.
The collusion hoax had nothing to do with Russia per se. It was about Trump. The heart of the case was not that Russia's trying to influence the election. There are all kinds of things you can do against that. You can deploy the CIA. You can charge them under FARA. You can arrest Russians. You can do sanctions. Notice that the Russia collusion hoax, which frankly, many people in this room probably were like, oh, this is exciting. We think we can sink the president this way. It was based on the idea that Trump went along with it.
But
Trump,
he did, didn't he? Didn't Trump say on TV, if you release the 10,000 emails, Russia, you'll be greatly rewarded?
No.
Wasn't Guccifer
Yes. During a rally.
Russian hacker that Roger Stone himself was working with to time releases of Hillary's email?
Yes, Roger Stone worked with the Russian hacker, Guccifer 2.0 or whatever.
Scamming stuff for the Podesta stuff?
Okay. What I'm getting at is...
Wasn't there a Trump Tower meeting where first Trump officials and surrogates lied about what the meeting was for, and then later they admitted that, yeah, there was a lawyer lady from Russia and we were seeing if they had information about Hillary Clinton?
Okay. So prior to the Mueller investigation...
Yes, they took a meeting thinking that they were meeting with a Russian KGB agent that had information on Hillary. Turns out they didn't, or didn't have what they wanted or whatever. But Trump's sons were even there. This is when I did the debate on WIC TV, this is what we brought up. Like, are you shitting me?
All of this recycled garbage was in all the media, and all of you guys were cheering it and hoping it would amount to something. And then Mueller investigates it, and he goes, guess what? There was no collusion.
So that's not what Mueller said. I see you didn't read the report.
Never, ever, 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 ever did the Mueller report say no collusion. Trump says this. Trump says it exonerated him. That's not. Tons of people colluded. Tons of people colluded.
Collusion is not a legal term. What Mueller said was there was probably criminal obstruction that prevented him from being able to do the investigation.
All right, so
that's what happened.
Do you dispute Mueller's conclusion that there was no Russia collusion?
He wasn't there to determine collusion as far as a crime. There's no crime of collusion. Mueller said that he couldn't gather enough evidence to prove that, but he said that there was heavy obstruction that probably would meet the level for criminal obstruction along the way. For instance, why did Trump fire Comey?
Okay, hold on.
Will you answer that question? You won't, because there's only one answer. It was to obstruct the investigation.
Okay,
that's why you fired Comey.
You said a little bit earlier ago, why would you even need a special counsel to look into something if a crime had not already been committed? You said that. Then you said just now, Mueller said, I don't have enough evidence that the crime was even committed. And yet...
He didn't say that.
Been investigating this for a long duration of time, and he concluded there's nothing there. But evidently there was enough there for him to do the investigation.
What do you think obstruction is? Obstruction is when you make it hard for a person to investigate. That's what the crime of obstruction is. Why do you think Donald Trump fired Comey?
Why did Donald Trump fire Comey? Because... I mean, he's the president. He has every right to fire a...
But why did he fire Comey? Because the president can fire whoever he wants.
When we talk about Democrats, we talk about what's moral and what's right. When we talk about Trump, we talk about what is in the outer perimeter of what is he legally allowed to do. He fired Comey because Comey wouldn't stop the investigation into him.
The Mueller investigation produced 37 indictments, 7 guilty pleas or convictions, and compelling evidence that the president obstructed justice on multiple occasions. Mueller also uncovered and referred 14 criminal matters to other components of the Department of Justice. Trump associates repeatedly lied to investigators about their contact with Russians, and President Trump refused to answer any questions about his efforts to impede federal proceedings and influence the testimony of witnesses. A statement signed by over 1,000 former federal prosecutors concluded that if any other American had engaged in the same efforts to impede federal proceedings the way that Trump did, they would likely be indicted for multiple charges of obstruction of justice. That was what he concluded. But they love because Trump didn't immediately get leg shackles thrown on. He proved there was no collusion.
Comey is an utter sleazeball.
What does that have to do with what we're talking about?
Hold on. Comey was in on the Russia collusion hoax.
Then why did he make public announcements about Hillary's email campaign that probably sunk her entire campaign?
Why do you keep changing the topic?
I'm not. I'm just pointing out how ridiculous all of your statements are. None of it makes sense.
About Comey. Comey is a guy. This is a guy.
Why did Trump fire him?
Comey's the guy who made the statement. That's why he brought it up.
Trump fired him because Trump realized that he was actually part of the hoax.
Do you even know why Trump stated he publicly fired him? He said it was because of the Hillary email stuff. Trump fired him because after Flynn was indicted, Trump said, well, now you guys should be done.
There's
you should be done.
Indictment.
It was a good indictment. It was going to get lied to the FBI about talking to Russia about Russian
Comey actually went on TV and boasted that they entrapped Flynn. Comey basically said...
Trump cornered Comey in the White House, in the Oval Office, and wanted him to say that he was not the target of the Russian investigation that was currently going on.
That we needed to get Flynn, but we normally couldn't get him. Because in the White House, you have to go through the White House counsel. But we knew that things were a little chaotic in the Trump White House in the first term. So what we did is we sent a couple of guys acting like they were not up to anything. They just want to ask him a few questions to clear a few things up. And of course, Flynn thinks these guys are on his side. They're just trying to sort something out. He cooperates.
So he tells them the truth that he actually violated a law and didn't report it, right?
And boom, they go after him.
Wait a second. So a couple of police officers acted like they were...
I defended Flynn on this originally. Believing the stories that come out and not the actual data. You know, I was wrapped up in the Trump shit. I defended him originally. As just a good guy, you know, but fucking he's a piece of shit, dude. So I don't care if he did think the FBI and agents were his friend. He was there under official capacity, and he admitted to speaking to these people and not reporting to the FBI, so lying to the FBI.
On your side, and then you lie to them and they charge you with a crime. This sounds like every JCS video on YouTube ever. Welcome to the real world.
Wait a minute.
This guy is a general. How does he not know how the freaking police work? Seriously? Just for the audience, how does this responsibly? If you lie to the FBI or if you lie...
Also, Mueller said the Russian interference in the 2016 election was sweeping and systemic. Major attack avenues included social media information warfare campaign that favored candidate Trump and the hacking of the Clinton campaign-related database and releases stolen materials through Russian-created entities such as WikiLeaks. Russia also targeted databases in many states related to administering elections, gaining access to information from millions of our registered voters here in the States.
Lie to police officers about things. You can be charged with crimes. It doesn't matter if they're trying to be your friend. They're trying to get you to admit to a lie. That's the whole purpose of law enforcement.
Hold on. Wait a minute. I hate to bring you into the 21st century on this. Hold on. It is actually part of the playbook of the FBI. If they cannot get you on something, they interview you for 10 hours. They then will find something you said in hour 7 that contradicts something that you said in hour 3. And they will say that both things can't
He was there for like 30 minutes, by the way. He was just talking to him for 30 minutes. He admitted to a crime in front of him.
be true, and therefore you must have lied. I know personally a case of a guy in Los Angeles, movie director, in fact, the guy who made the film Die Hard, where they went after him on this. He was friends with a guy, he had gone to school with a
So this whole thing is called an anecdote. I know a guy that made this movie, and the FBI held him in a room with no tap water for 37 hours. And at one point, he said he arrived at 6 a.m., and later on, he said 6:30, and they said, oh, none of this matters. This is an anecdote, right? You're just making up a story now.
the guy who apparently was in the mafia, and they were trying to get this guy, John McTiernan by name, the director, by the way, of Die Hard 1 and 2. They told him, we want you to give up your friend. McTiernan basically said, I'm not doing it. Leave me alone. So what they did was they contacted him under dubious pretext we don't need to go into. We need to ask you some questions about something else. And then they interview him for hours and hours and hours, and they find 2 statements, by the way, not even directly about the case, that, quote, contradicted each other. And they're like, you lied to the government, you lied to the FBI, that's a crime in itself. This poor guy spent, I believe, 2 years in prison for lying to the government. Now,
I have a feeling if you look at the facts of that case, it's not
Cool story.
going to be even remotely close to what you've represented them to be.
No,
but also,
that is the case.
secondly, just don't talk to them then. Why was he even talking to them for 10 hours?
No,
Is he bored?
all I'm saying,
Do you need some friends?
All I'm saying, no, you think you're cooperating.
You don't have to. You just say I don't feel like talking for 10 hours. I'm fine cooperating with law enforcement. I wouldn't talk to the FBI for 10 hours.
Look, I wouldn't either, but that's only partly because I've become savvy about how all this works.
And Flynn wasn't. He was just a doughy-eyed, innocent person wandering.
no.
Wait. Die Hard director John McTiernan. John McTiernan? There's no R in there. I thought he said R. Anyways, was indicted and later sentenced to prison for lying to the FBI and a federal judge after he hired a private investigator, Anthony Pellicano, to illegally wiretap another movie producer, Charles Roven, during the filming of Rollerball in 2022. McTiernan initially pleaded guilty, then tried to withdraw his guilty plea, leading to perjury charges and a 1-year jail term and a fine in 2010, followed by imprisonment in 2013. Does that sound like the FBI was asking about something else and was like, oh, no, after 10 hours that he hired a private investigator to illegally wiretap a different director, admitted to it, and then said, no, I'm not admitting to that. Like, what the fuck? He was indicted in 2009. He pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI in 2006, and then again in 2007 after trying to backtrack and facing perjury charges. In 2010, he received a 1-year, not multiple year, 1 year in prison and a $100,000 fine and probation for lying with appeals delaying his incarceration. He served time in federal prison from April to February, so he almost served the full year. It was one of many that involved the massive Pellicano wiretapping scandal where the private eye illegally tapped phones for celebrity clients, maybe thousands of people's phones. Yeah, I don't think he's representing that case well in his little story time.
No, you think you're cooperating.
You don't have to. You just say I don't feel like talking for 10 hours. I'm fine cooperating with law enforcement. I wouldn't talk to the FBI for 10 hours.
I wouldn't either, but that's only partly because I've become savvy about how all this works.
And
okay.
Just a doughy-eyed, innocent person wandering.
No. I mean, Flynn did not think that. Flynn comes in as the national security advisor in a new
The national security advisor who lied about speaking to a foreign Russian person in charge of political events. Why would you lie about that? Don't you think maybe that's probably not a good thing if you're the national security advisor to lie about?
Well, maybe or maybe not. Or it could be. Hold on. No, hold on.
Maybe or maybe not. Sometimes they lie about talking to, Russian KGB agents. Whatever.
Wait, I mean, if you are in the CIA or the NSA or or in the security agencies, you lie a lot. You lie a lot as part of
Not to the FBI when you're... Get
your
the fuck out of here.
You lie a lot as part of what you're paid to do. It is your job to mislead foreign governments. It is your
Foreign,
job
the
to
operative
mislead
word,
people
foreign.
domestically.
Not domestically.
Hold on.
You don't mislead your own agencies.
Stop. You're
Stop
acting
lying.
like hold on. You're acting. You asked me a question, which is there a reason for Flynn? Let's just say he met with Mr. X,
To lie to the FBI about it. No.
and he is now asked, "Did you meet with Mr. X?" And Flynn could have many good reasons for saying, "No, I didn't." Okay. So did Flynn lie? Yeah, he did.
Wait,
Did he
give
have-
one reason why he should lie to our own FBI about that.
It could be that Flynn is dealing with foreign policy. The FBI comes in. Who knows what they told Flynn? Let's say they told Flynn, look, we're just investigating embezzlement inside the White House. We need to ask you a bunch of questions. We don't know what they said to Flynn. That's the key point. They come to Flynn.
That's not a good reason to lie to the FBI. What the fuck? He's losing this debate, dude. Let's say they're talking about embezzlement. Did you talk to this KGB agent? Well, that's not got nothing to do with embezzlement. I'm going to lie to him.
Under one pretext, and they're trying, and the key point here is intention. They came to entrap him. That's the beauty of what Comey said.
So that's what do you think entrapment is? Entrapment is when I ask you a question, you lie?
No. Entrapment is where you basically go to a guy that you have no basis to suspect, right? In other words, they didn't know, they weren't saying that Flynn did anything. They're like, let's see what we can get on Flynn.
So no,
That's not entrapment at all. Oh, Destiny's gonna do it, but that's not entrapment at all. Entrapment is when you take somebody and you get them, you induce them to commit a crime that they were not predisposed to do already. Right? They weren't thinking about it. They weren't considering it. They weren't involved in it. They weren't nothing. And you use persuasion, threats, fraud of some type, and you get them to commit a crime they were not predisposed to do already. It's not lying to the FBI no matter what question was asked of you. Okay?
Entrapment is when you entice or force somebody to commit a crime that they wouldn't have otherwise committed. If a police officer walks up to you and they say, hey, do you want to buy some illegal drugs? And you say, yeah, sure. That's not entrapment. If a cop comes up to you and he says, you better buy this drug or I'm going to beat the shit out of you or whatever, that would be entrapment. Entrapment is not, I ask you questions and you oopsies lie to me about communicating with Russians. That's the national security advisor. Jesus, right? Like that's on you. At that point.
Well, maybe he had a good reason.
I think that when
I think that the NSA just lies so much that sometimes they lie to the FBI in investigations.
the government sets out to entrap one of their own in this way,
This isn't entrapment. Use a different word. Entrapment has a legal definition.
is just downright diabolical.
Then why has Trump failed to do it with his political opponents despite being so hungry to do so? Or do you agree, for instance, that the Hunter Biden stuff was just outlandish given that the confidential informant that entire investigation started with, of which Jordan and Gomer, nobody found any good solid information about this, about Hunter Biden engaged in illegal overseas, not reporting income, whatever. The entire start of that was a confidential informant who's now admitted to lying completely about the origination of that story.
Okay.
About everything. So the guy who got this all kicked off has admitted he lied about all of it.
Leaving aside the confidential originator of the case, do you agree that Hunter Biden and his partners received $83,000 a month from Burisma?
No, that was the reported payments, and that was the reported
You don't
payments.
agree that they got the money?
No, I don't disagree with you. I agree.
Oh, you agree. You agree they got the money. Do you believe that Hunter Biden is a expert on minerals and in the Ukraine?
He might be, he might not be. I think he was a business person. He'd been on boards of other business ventures before.
Not to mention a noted artist. You know, he has done a lot of amazing things. We
He's
know.
more qualified than Witkoff is to talk about Ukraine, and he's currently our ambassador to Putin, and he doesn't even bring his own translator. So Hunter Biden was qualified to sit on the Burisma board, yes.
Yeah.
And if I were to ask you, is there any evidence that he was sat there improperly, you would be able to give me nothing. So let's both
No,
agree
I
that
would
he
be
was
able to give you
qualified.
something.
Oh, okay.
I would be able to give you something.
Okay.
I will give you the evidence which is now released of detailed Hunter Biden energy reports, which appear to have been actually lifted from the Biden confidential files. In other words, you said before, Biden didn't even know he had these files. There was no reason for him to have them. Yes, there is a reason. The reason is to cash in on the information, because one of the things that foreign countries want to buy from you is information not available in the public square. And so if you have confidential documents, by and large, all these guys who go into government, very often when they leave, they become consultants.
Wait, Joe
And
Biden took classified
hold on.
information about his son to sell his own son to foreign operatives?
Joe Biden took confidential documents because he realized that they could become the basis for a, quote, insider information that benefited not just Hunter Biden, but James Biden, Frank Biden, and Joe Biden himself. Don't forget about 10% for the big guy.
Which means, okay, so I'm just curious then. So if I were to say Donald Trump does stuff like that, for instance, how he has two of the largest crypto schemes in the world set up right now where anonymous people can donate to Donald Trump and even be seated to speak with him in the White House, like, or at Mar-a-Lago, like the event that he did, I guess like a year ago or whatever. Can you show me anything comparable to access to Joe Biden like that, or any evidence whatsoever that he planned to use any of this improperly or communicated with people improperly or did anything bad with any of these documents?
Well, we're talking about two different things. You're talking about presidential
asking for evidence.
fundraising.
I agree. We're talking about facts and you're giving details. Yeah.
I would tell you the way that fundraising works in the United States is very simple. If you tomorrow had a business and you needed something and you wrote a $10,000 check to your local congressman, that guy will return your phone calls.
He would just lie about it.
If not the day after.
Didn't you just argue against this and saying that you
No.
illegally donated money to your friend who was running for Congress up in New York? Are you admitting that that's what you were doing, a quid pro quo?
My friend who ran was
Oh, he had.
look. When
That wasn't for. He didn't want any favors. I didn't want favors. My friend was different. My friend was so different, and everybody would know that. And I just donated because he was my friend. Wait, So now you're admitting that people donate money to get favors, and that's what you were charged with? Or what are we doing here, boss? God damn, this guy just walks into him.
Like
I love it. I needed a win. Thank you, Destiny. I've been so fucking depressed over everything. Thank you.
a stronger argument because one of the accusations the prosecutors are making is that your friend introduced you to the person who was the primary funder for one of your documentaries, right?
You have this facile ability to jump leapfrog style to things that have nothing to do with each other.
I can explain the connections if you want. You just claimed if you want to make financing work in the United States, here's how financing works. But earlier, you gave me the exact contrary position of saying just because I'm illegally sending money to a friend running for Congress doesn't mean I'm looking for a quid pro quo. So those are two contradictory positions that I'm trying to understand the contradiction between.
My friend was running a quixotic campaign in New York. She was running because a Dartmouth woman, Kristen Gillibrand, was the sitting senator. And so my friend Wendy Long said, I think I can raise some issues in the campaign. I said, don't run, Wendy. You're going to lose by 40 or 50 points. And she goes, okay, but if I run, will you help me? And I go, well, if you run, I'll try to help you. So this was the basis on which I supported a candidate who had no chance to win, lost by 40 points. I had nothing to get out of it. And so what I'm getting at is we were talking a moment ago about how...
No, a moment ago you said that this is why people donate. People donate to political people because they'll take their call. And then you said, no, I didn't donate for that. I knew she would lose. I just donated because we were friends. Well, then obviously other people might just be donating because they're friends or have nothing to gain or what. Either one is true or the other is true, but they can't both be true. Right? It can't be the only reason people donate is to get, favors. But I donated because I knew she would lose and I didn't want a favor.
How presidents raise money and are solicitous of people who give them money. And I'm granting that on both parties, this is very common. But that's not the same as Hunter Biden. You jump from Hunter Biden to that. Hunter Biden was basically cashing in big time from a foreign government purporting to supply them with insider information, which is what they were paying for. And we know from his own business partner that money was ending up in the pocket of Joe Biden.
What insider information?
What?
What insider information does the United States have for the...
all you have to do is read the Hunter Biden reports in which he claims, I'm giving you all this information.
Information on how to run a business, because that's what his past was.
He's giving you information.
Yes, he has MBAs and all kinds of, he's highly educated. Whether you like him or not, think he's a crackhead. He's educated.
About the U.S. policy and posture vis-a-vis energy, and he's giving you information about various people in the administration.
Nothing insider.
How do you know that?
Because it was never, I don't even know if Palmer or Jordan alleged this. It doesn't show up in any reports ever. It was just always these vague stories of insider.
They're not vague stories.
Why wasn't he charged with any crimes at all? Why didn't the House didn't even recommend charges despite the 50 million different subcommittees, special investigations, or whatever they tried to do on him? The facts are frustrating here. I know. I understand. It's a difficult position to be in. But the difference is so if I look at the...
So they couldn't, they did this for years trying to get him on charges. And the one they got him on was that he said he wasn't using drugs on a form to file a gun thing or to buy a gun. A form you file to buy a gun. He said he wasn't a drug user.
Crypto stuff, there's nothing even remotely comparable in all of U.S. history to a president being able to solicit anonymous donations from anybody on the planet, right?
The House recognized that to propose criminal prosecution to Joe Biden's own DOJ was a fool's errand. That's why they didn't do it.
But they did. They literally had him plead guilty to convictions. That has to go through the federal Department of Justice.
Let me finish.
Because what you just said isn't true.
If he didn't do anything wrong,
wait,
why did Joe Biden pardon him? And not only pardon him, Joe Biden was very careful to pardon Hunter Biden for crimes going back to 2014. In other words, he gave him a retroactive pardon, not just for things to do with Burisma, but for any other crimes this guy did, going back to when Joe Biden himself was the vice president.
Why were they able to convict him of some things if they weren't able to recommend any charges? Wasn't Hunter Biden convicted of the gun charge and the IRS charge?
Yes, he was convicted of those things, and
so
I think
they could recommend charges.
I think I've just given you what I think would be a good case to make. Now, why the powers that be decided, let's not charge Hunter Biden.
Just so we can agree, what you just said had no basis in reality. They could recommend charges. They did. He pled guilty to those two things. So they always had the ability to recommend charges. Isn't it more likely that, especially considering the origination of the investigation was a confidential informant who admitted lying about everything, right? And that 10% from the big guy, interestingly enough, we're just citing the Russian leaks from the DCCC.
Absolutely not. We're citing Hunter Biden's own business partner.
No.
Yes.
No.
It was Tony Bobulinski who revealed the 10% for the big guy.
No, there's no connection to Joe Biden there ever. It's never been made. It's never been made. They had the ability to investigate for years. They found nothing.
The 10% for the big guy, it comes from Hunter Biden. There was a meeting with Joe Biden, Bobulinski, Hunter Biden at the Milano restaurant in Washington, D.C., not very far from here, in Georgetown, in which Joe Biden, who was very careful himself not to get into the business dealings, but he would always show up as if to say, listen, this is on I'm involved, I'm supporting my son here, you make the deal with him, the money will then part of it come to me. All of this is laid out. Now, I agree, Merrick Garland...
We think that's what happened. What did Joe Biden do for his son? What was the quid pro quo here for alleging that? What even happened?
This is the style of the Corleone family. What does Joe Biden do for his son? Joe Biden's son is Michael Corleone. He's part of a corrupt family operation. The other brothers are involved.
What is the operation?
The operation is to shake down foreign entities.
Shake down how? When
by
Trump goes to
promising
other
them
countries and signs deals with leaders in Indonesia and Qatar and Ukraine and Russia for mineral deals. What about the $700 million in DoD contracts that Trump's own children have gotten for extraction deals in Ukraine that the president himself is negotiating?
Okay.
Well,
there we go.
Whitcock getting plans passed off from Russians, right? I can show you.
Your only mode of defense is the what about, and then you jump to something.
Well, no, my mode of defense is the reason.
Why don't we stay with this?
Okay, wait. If you want to stay with the topic, let's do it. Give me one concrete example of Biden corruption. What was one concrete example? Not like I think this happened and there was a story. What's one concrete example? Okay. I just gave you like 5 for Trump.
All right. One concrete example is that Biden is vice president, and right about the time that Biden is designated as the U.S. man for Ukraine, a river of money now begins to flow from Burisma to Hunter Biden and his business partners, and all of this at a time when Burisma itself is under investigation.
So Hunter Biden got hired and was doing a job. He got paid for it.
For all kinds of fraud, and Joe Biden goes on camera before an international council and tells you that he demanded that the prosecutor,
The super corrupt prosecutor that everybody was trying to get rid of that refused to step down.
Burisma, be fired. And not only that, he got him fired. And he not only that, he went on to say, I told Ukraine that you're not getting $1 billion if you don't fire this guy.
Why did he say
There's
that?
nothing that Trump has done that comes even close to this.
Sure. Well, then why did he say that?
He said that because it's true and he got away with it.
No. Why did Biden tell that to Ukraine?
Because Biden told that to Ukraine because he was essentially making a deal with Burisma in which Burisma
even know the
said,
official
hold on,
cover story?
Burisma said, you sort out this corruption deal for us right here and we will start paying your son and money will flow right back to you. Nothing good. The timing is perfect.
Where's any evidence of that? I think this happened. The timing's good.
Huge. And
The
all
timing is perfect. What else was going on in 2014 in Ukraine? Don't you think
You're my Don.
I know this is, I'm a sucker for buying the official story that the entire European Union and the United States and the whole U.S. official administration, everything agreed with. The deal was that money was going to be made available to loan to Ukraine if they would clean up the rampant corruption in that country, of which there was a plethora of. We know this because one of the main benefactors of that corruption was Manafort when he was working with Putin to help his candidate in Ukraine that he was lying about reporting his income to. It was one of the big indictments that came out, one of the big convictions, and one of the big pardons that Trump made later. But you said that's unrelated to this, right? In 2014, I know, of course it's not. Nothing is. In 2014, when Biden was making
Nothing is.
I'm just saying,
Nothing's related. We got you.
Biden was operating. This was the deal that Ukraine had already made with the U.S. You have to clean up. Shokin was known as a bad prosecutor. That investigation you were talking about into Burisma, that was dead for over a year. There was nothing even happening on that front. Ukraine was known to be a country.
Yeah, they had already stopped this long before all this happened. The Burisma investigation had already stonewalled. That nothing was going on.
With a lot of corruption and a lot of corruption-related issues, and part of them having access to low interest rate loans from the West, from the United States, was that they would clean up their corrupt businesses or their corrupt lack of ability to conduct themselves as a country. That was the story given. The whole rest of the world agrees. The European Union, the United States, everybody else. Nobody's brought this up until Trump was caught trying to do a quid pro quo later with his own personal attorney, Giuliani, making phone calls, and then him making phone calls unilaterally on his own.
So let's repeat your dewy-eyed account of what is actually happening in Ukraine. According to you, there's a lot of corruption in Ukraine. True. Not surprisingly, very involved in the corruption. Burisma. Would you think that a giant energy company in Ukraine is somehow immune from the corruption? They're part of it. Okay, a prosecutor is looking into it. According to you, Joe Biden, having no personal interest in the matter whatsoever, motivated purely by the most sublime ethics,
He was told this by fucking Obama to do this.
tells Ukraine, you have to fire. There's a corruption all over the country, but I'm only demanding one thing of you. You need to fire this one guy.
That wasn't the only demand.
Prosecutor.
Who is looking into, the chief prosecutor, who is looking into corruption from the company that my son is about to make an extremely lucrative financial deal with for 83 grand per month to go on indefinitely. And according to you, it's all on the up and up. No investigations required here, guys.
You know why I know this?
We're all good Democrats here, and when our guys do it, it's all A-okay.
This is the easy killer question that, again, you won't have an answer for. If this was such a horrible, corrupt thing, why is it that Republicans only seem to recall the quote that Joe Biden made on stage in front of the whole world in 2014, years later, when it came up with Donald Trump in Ukraine? Why would Joe Biden go out on stage and admit to the corruption, saying, I told them that if you don't fire Shogun, you're not getting anything from us, ha ha ha. Why did nobody say, oh my God, we need to investigate him for corruption? Maybe because the whole world understood how corrupt the Ukrainian system was at that point in time.
The reason people went back to the video is for the simple reason that they, at that point of the video, didn't know about the money flow. So the point is, Joe Biden makes an action which seems on the up and up. It is that it's part of my job. I'm making sure
it's part of the fire prosecutors in other countries. No, it's not.
It is. First of all, it's a little unusual for the Vice President of the United States to name the chief prosecutor in this country and say...
Very unusual, I agree. So why didn't anybody think anything weird of it? Because this was the policy that the European Union and the West had in guaranteeing loans to help Ukraine. That's why nobody looked into it.
So you can think that something is weird without thinking that there's money changing hands. You can think, I don't know why he'd do that. That's really strange. And then a little bit later, it comes out, hold on, you actually have checks made out to Hunter Biden's LLCs. You have contracts from Burisma. Now you know, oh my gosh, it all makes sense. This guy was doing it so to open up a spigot of money. Obviously, it's in Burisma's interest to shut down the investigation. What's that worth? $83,000 a month? Yeah. Is our Hunter Biden's expertise worth 83? Hunter Biden wasn't just getting 83. So was Devin Archer. So it's 83 per partner, not 83 total, per month. people don't give that kind of money, especially foreigners don't give that kind of money without having some interest in the matter. They're not.
So what would you say about the $2 billion that Kushner's firm got from the MBS when Donald Trump was crafting the Abraham Accords? Are you saying there must have been a quid pro quo there as well? Or what about the massive Qatari deal with the $500 million jet? Or what about the minerals deal in Ukraine with Russia?
I think we should look at these. So I think with Trump, let me tell you what.
Here, as we move on to this, can we admit
It's never corruption when it's his guy. But he accused Destiny of that.
The big guy or whatever. There was no solid proof of anything related to Joe Biden or Pence with regards to improper handling of their documents. But
well, all I'm saying is when you say there's no solid proof, all evening you have been reciting these rhetorical, why do you think Trump took a plane from Qatar? There's no solid proof, but you've been saying it. Why did Jared Kushner make this deal? You constantly invoke these rhetorical whys.
So to be clear, I'm not invoking rhetorical whys. I'm not holding your line. The issue is that Kushner was the guy who was...
He's trying to hold you to a standard. If you're talking about this one, do you think this one's also corrupt? Because they're pretty similar.
Architect of the Abraham Accords, and Kushner's firm got $2 billion from MBS from Saudi Arabia. Or Donald Trump allowed Qatar to have a security agreement with the U.S. We don't even have with Israel. And in exchange, there was a $400 million jet that was authorized for Donald Trump's, I guess, Secret Service and his presidency to have. Hunter Biden was never a public office official holder. So there is no, I can't draw the comparison. Now, if Hunter Biden worked in the White House, or if Hunter Biden had the same role that Witkoff had, that Elon Musk has, that any of Trump's children has, then I could say, oh yeah, that is kind of like weird and bad. But you guys seem very focused on the hypothetical crimes of Hunter Biden, none of which the House is able to actually indict him on. But you have no concern about the open, rampant corruption that Donald Trump is engaged in, where right now, with a crypto coin, he could take donations from anybody around the world and nobody would know about it.
Let's look at the jet from Qatar, because I think if we're looking at corruption, let's look and see what's going on here. So Trump,
got him on the run now.
Unique aspects of Trump, I guess.
Stay on him, Destiny.
Being a criminal, yeah, president, yeah.
This is not a criminal act.
I agree. The Supreme Court
Trump operates. Okay. Trump is ultimately a transactional guy who acts as if the United States is his corporation, and he's the CEO. So Trump thinks the way Trump mind works: if I can get a foreign business to put $500 million into...
Trump thinks that he can do illegal things because he's a CEO of America. Okay.
The United States, I'm scoring a big one for my company called the USA. Trump thinks that if I'm making a deal with Qatar, and the Qataris as tribute want to give the United States of America, not Trump, a plane, we'll take your plane. It actually establishes who is paying tribute to whom. And Trump's point is, I can do these deals. Frankly, if it were the Biden administration, they would have given Qatar $400 million and got nothing out of it.
So if the CEO of your company cut you a deal, your company a deal, where your company now has to do work for Qatar, but the CEO gets to fly around in a $500 million private jet, you feel like the CEO was working for you?
You're saying, yeah, I do.
How does the $400 million jet?
Yeah, I do.
So the $400 million.
I'll try to make this up somehow. Yeah, I do.
That the United States would have to pay. Air Force One is being refurbished or displaced.
It's going to cost more.
American workers in an American company to make a plane. We got one for free from Qatar, a country that you said is influencing our country via foreign affairs more than almost any other country on the planet.
That was your claim, right? Because they invested in college and they invested in media.
I think you think you're making gotchas on me, but you're not. Qatar.
I'm just pointing out what you're saying. The gotchas are coming from your side.
Let me spell it out.
Okay, go ahead.
The nation of Qatar is extremely cunning. They understand that you've got the radical jihadis over here, and you've got Israel over here. And the Qataris realize that there is a very important middleman role to be played by a broker who has access to the terrorists, but at the same time is willing to make deals with America. And so, for example, if you want to get the hostages out, it's not easy to deal with Hamas. And so Qatar goes, listen, the guys in Hamas, they live in Qatar.
I'm working on a 3D print while we're watching this, by the way. If you wonder what I'm doing with my hands, I'm not masturbating, okay? Just thought I should point that out right off the bat. I'm not masturbating. I'll let you know when I do.
And sorry them. Now, this is the reality of the dirty world we live in. You have to work with these kinds of people. Are they duplicitous? Yes. Do they make promises? Yes. They go, listen, we want to run some joint air exercises with you at one of your military bases, but we are the good Muslims. We preach the Quran, but we don't want to bomb your buildings. And so you need to encourage the good Muslims to undermine the power of the bad Muslims. And so this is Qatar's sales pitch. Why do you think Georgetown took their money? Why do you think they own political science departments around the United States? They have a pitch. Now, what I'm saying with Trump understands what their pitch is. But Trump is operating, I think, as no president that I've seen before him in the transnational
I won't do it.
Something
won't do it, bug dude.
Than almost anybody else I've seen in 40 years of American politics. The Biden people were so bad at this.
At being a criminal?
Giving away everything and getting nothing in return.
Why isn't it Donald Trump is able to create all these crafty deals with people like Qatar? And when you talk about the terrorists and everything else that they were concerned with, they were probably concerned with the fact that Israel had just bombed them. I think that was a major impetus for them securing a peace agreement or a security agreement with the United States, is because they didn't want Israel bombing them anymore, number one. Number two, he has all this ability to negotiate so cleverly and craftily with all of his enemies. Why can't he make the same negotiations with, I don't know, Canada and Mexico?
Well,
he's turned ally to enemy of almost every country on the planet of the United States.
I'll tell you why. Because what Trump is dealing with is basically 75 years of European freeloading off of America. The Europeans after World War II got an amazing deal, which is basically we, America, will locate hundreds of thousands of troops in Europe to protect against a Soviet
I just
invasion.
broke it.
We will guarantee the protection of Europe, and we, the American taxpayer,
I had to glue it now.
Meanwhile,
Damn it.
you can take all the money that you are spending on defense and use it on your welfare state. This deal has been in place untouched by Republican or Democratic presidents for 75 years. And every time anybody has questioned it, the president or the president's team has basically said, we have to live with it. We realize we're being ripped off. And by the way, the same is true across the board. It recently came out.
Well, you're just focusing on Europe. Just focusing on Europe.
You'll have your turn. It recently came out that, by and large, pharmaceutical drugs all over the world are dramatically cheaper than in the United States. Why? Because all the R&D cost is borne by us. And the companies then sell the product for the actual cost plus a markup. So you might get the same drug for $7 in Canada, and it's $50 in the United States, because our citizens are stuck with all the R&D costs. We didn't even hear about this for decades until recently.
Wasn't there a president who was black who was trying to do like a public option, or wasn't Biden trying to negotiate like actual
irrelevant?
It's a lie.
Hold on, is it a lie?
Yes, it's a lie. We always have known that drugs cost more in the United States. Why do you think Obama was even trying to pass the Affordable Care Act? We've always known that these things are expensive. Why do you think Biden was trying to make it so that Medicare could actually negotiate with drug providers in order to have actual ceilings on prices? We've always known this, but for some reason conservatives are just now catching up to 20 years of like, wow, isn't this kind of a bad thing?
Hold on, you know, and this is really the story of this debate. Customary.
Might have to make this bottom part thicker, maybe.
You're taking it for granted that the drug should cost $50, and you're saying now, having ripped off the American citizen by making him pay the full R&D freight, let's now give democratically handouts to people so that they can now afford the $50, even though the price shouldn't be $50 in the first place. See, so with Trump, you go to the root of the problem. Which
hopefully the glue holds it. We'll see.
From abroad, let's kick their ass a little. Let's tell them, listen, guys, you can't pull the scam on me anymore. I know exactly what you're doing. If you want this drug, you don't have to take it. You can let your people die of diabetes or whatever. But if you want this drug, the company will amortize the R&D cost over the price of the drug worldwide. Americans are not going to pay higher prices. Whether we do Obamacare or not is a completely separate issue. But in your usual gymnastic way, you can't answer what I said, so you pretend everybody
What do you think I can't answer? What is a question you've asked that you don't think I can answer?
The question I'm raising is this. You started out by asking me,
water
why
drink.
is Trump so combative and he can't make a deal with Canada? And I'm giving you the answer because those people have been enjoying a rip-off scheme for 75 years.
If all of these other countries have been enjoying a rip-off scheme of the United States, why are we outperforming all of them?
He's not fighting with all of them. He's made some
No, why are we outperforming all of them? Which European countries benefited so much from their one-sided, lopsided deal with the United States that they're doing so much better than us? Who's outperforming the U.S. right now worldwide?
That's what I'm making so far.
That is what is known as a non sequitur.
I'm sorry, what is the damage? You said that they were all leeching off of us, taking advantage of a state of affairs. How?
They're taking advantage of the state of affairs. Let's just start with Europe, okay? The truth of it is not only does America pay a large portion of European defense costs, but they don't even pay their freight in NATO. They were getting away, by and large, with paying about 1% of their GDP to NATO. Under Trump, they've agreed to raise it to 5%. Now, I can see why they're pissed about that. Nobody wants to pay 5%. They'd rather have that money to spend on buying votes in their own country.
What are they even paying for when you say 2%, 5% to NATO?
We're talking, NATO is supposed to be funded by a collaborative, it's a collaboration of the United States and the major countries of Europe, and all of them are supposed to pay into the pot that bankrolls NATO. When we're fighting this war in Ukraine, who do you think's paying for all of it?
So it's investment. Well, the United States has been reticent to under the Republican leadership, but this is a percentage agreement that they agreed to put into their own military forces. It's not like we get that. It's not like NATO even directly gets that. And Trump is trying to separate himself from the security provider from Europe.
We're talking about
it's defensive spending. Yes,
countries are taking advantage of us. Has America not gotten in exchange for the security agreement with Europe the strongest military on the planet? The ability to have so much precision that we can murder random Venezuelans in the ocean and get camera footage of it for Donald Trump and Christine to show off to the American public. Like we have like the strongest military on the planet. We've had the strongest military on the planet. Everybody's trying to steal military secrets and everything from us, the United States. You're acting like this has been a one-sided deal.
I'm making the point that this is like pure sophistry here.
Well, I just said that was not true. Does America have the strongest military on the planet?
Hold on. Let me zoom into what we're actually talking about. Okay, you have Europe. You have these countries that face mutual threats from each other. For a long time, they faced the Soviet threat. They face other threats. The United States comes in and basically goes, we will pay the lion's share of your protection. Okay? Now you're asking, don't we get something out of it? Of course we do. But any common sense transactor would know that while we get something out of it, they get a lot out of it. They can afford to pay. They might not have been able to afford to pay in 1946, but they can afford to pay a lot more to their own defense. But they refuse. Don't interrupt me. But they refuse to do it because they would rather freeload off the U.S. taxpayer.
You're saying freeload. The United States has gotten to coordinate security on the entire planet almost, on our entire hemisphere as a result of this arrangement. It's benefited us. Yeah. We have the strongest economy. We've got the best trade arrangements. We've got the best intellectual property.
We literally told them back in the day. We told Europe, like, don't worry about the Navy, right? We are going to build a Navy that'll patrol everything, right? We're going to control the shipping lanes. We're going to control the world. Here is the not a dildo case.
Hey, Daddies, it's me, the Linda Binda from.
Let me end that. It'll go off in a second. My media controls are messed up. So here's the bottom. I'm just going to stick a bow on top of this. So here's the bottom. Here's the top. And they just kind of twist together. It's a pretty tight fit like that. But then I'll just stick a bow on top of it. And it'll be I got to make a smaller one too because I got some art down in the center of it, right? But it should just twist and untwist without breaking. I'm going to sand it down to where the fits a little bit better. I don't want it super tight so somebody breaks it instantly. And then the not a dildo goes right into it. By the way, Mariah screamed, why is it gray? You guys know I got a green screen, right? That's why it's gray. Anyways, even with the dildo in it, I might have to put an air hole. Maybe it's vacuum sealing. So you see like this solid black container, right? With a bow on top.
You pay for your own protection, which benefits you the most. It benefits me. I don't want to see you harmed, but you don't want to see you harmed even more. So you pay. Now I have some more money. And when I say some more money, what I mean is that, look, you install the alarm. I'll provide a security guard. You pay for your own protection, which benefits you the most. It benefits me. I don't want to see you harmed, but you don't want to see you harmed even more. So you pay. Now I have some more money. And when I say some more money, what I mean is that even after the Cold War, if the United States had said, we are in a different world, the Soviet threat is over, we're not going to have German battalions coming through the Fulda Gap and swarming up.
I might have to reprint this, I think.
Situation. Our defense budget can now probably be cut in half, or in a third, to a third. And if we did that, we now have a lot of opportunities, which governments are not very wise in the way they spend money, but we can deploy them any which way we want, which is a separate debate. But the country would have enormous added resources. Just look at how much we've spent on the defense of Europe since World War II. It's a giant number. Now, what have we gotten for it? Have we averted any great wars?
You'll be all right.
World's largest economy. We extract intelligent people from them via our institutions because of how easy it is for them to come and study here. We have foreign investment from these countries. These people invest a ton in U.S. treasuries because of all the extra trade that we do.
Oh, yeah. So the Europeans take our money and invest it in our treasuries so that they can then collect interest on that. And that's how we have a $38 trillion debt. And you think it's a wonderful arrangement in which we give them money to then loan to us so we can then pay them the interest on that and go into the red to $38 trillion.
I'm sorry, as opposed to, what do you call a man? When somebody comes up to you and they say, oh, what's your net worth? Well, you know, I have $10 in my bank account. And then another guy, you're like, oh, you know, what's your net worth? What do you do? It's like, oh, I've got like a $50 million loan out. Do you think the guy with the $50 million loan is the poor one in that circumstance? The reason why we have a $38 trillion debt and the reason why our interest rates are still relatively low despite having so much debt is because so many other people want to invest in the U.S. economy. Our workers get paid more across basically every single sector. Everybody wants to come to this country to live. Like South Africa isn't begging, you know, Germany or Britain to let them in. If you want like surplus export economies, you can look at places like that, like Iran, or places like North Korea, or places like the United Kingdom is an export economy right now. Like, I mean, these are not favorable places to live.
Make that a little bit thicker.
Okay.
The
United States. What you say is not untrue, but it's not the reason that our interest rates are low. Look, Europe, first of all, with regard to Europeans coming to study in America, are you saying that Europeans would not come to study in America from the 40s to now, even though the United States is leading in technology? We have very good reasons for the Europeans to come study here.
Not when the current administration is deporting them for protesting against Israel.
Now he switches to something else.
I'm not. It's you talk about students coming to the United States to study universities making it harder to get student visas. I try to say no, they wouldn't come.
You're a hit and run man because whenever I try to stay on a point,
hit and stay, man.
you will
flip
to something completely different.
We're on the same point.
Same point. You said interest rates are low because Europeans invest a lot of money in the United States and hold a lot of our treasuries. And I think that is not even close to the seventh most important reason why interest rates are low. The real reason interest rates are low is far more insidious. And that is our government is constantly printing oceans of money. They have the ability to print money and dilute the money that is in your pocket. So you work hard to earn money. Your own government, as we speak, is printing money. When I came to the United States, I had $500 in my pocket, 1980. If I had saved that money, spent none of it, through great frugality, and if I had it now, the purchasing power of that same $500 today would be approximately $50. In other words, we save money and we practice deferred gratification. And the one thing we want is for our money to hold its value. We would rather it go up in value because we've worked so hard to get it. But our government, our own government, screws us by diluting our money because when they print money, they get to spend it and the money in all of our pockets goes down.
So treasuries is not printing money. Quantitative easing or other things are different factors that you can talk about when it comes to monetary policy. But the reason why our interest rates are low is because a lot of people want to buy U.S. treasuries. So we can sell our debt at a very low interest. If not many people wanted to buy it, then we would raise the interest on our debt. Printing money and saying that that's magically making interest rates low doesn't make sense. It's not connected.
This is called, it doesn't make any sense? Okay. the interest rate is the price of money, right? How difficult it is to get money is what sets the interest rate. Now, let's just assume as a thought experiment that I, right now, double the amount of money in circulation. Will the interest rate go up or down? Down, because the supply of money is vastly greater. Just go back to Economics 101.
Economics 101. If you were a German citizen and you wanted to buy a U.S. Treasury bond and it was paying 5% was the coupon rate on it, if you knew that the U.S. was going to double their money supply, why would you buy that Treasury bond for a lower interest rate? You would demand a higher interest rate on it.
You would. The reason you would buy that Treasury bond is because the German Bundesbank is tripling the amount of its own money. In other words, they're printing money too. And the United States is an abuser of the money supply, but not as big an abuser as other countries.
Okay, these countries are taking advantage of us, don't have to abuse. Shouldn't they be abusing the money supply less? They're taking advantage of us so much? Like
the reason that they're look, why was there runaway inflation of 15% per month in Argentina, and why do these interest rates and inflation rates vary so much around the world? There's more than one reason, but the primary reason is money printing, and you can see why it's very attractive for governments to print money. Here's why: if they didn't print money, let's just say we outlawed it, the U.S. government every time they spent money would have to come to you, the taxpayer, and tell you we're going to extract more $20 bills out of your wallet. And you would be like, no, if you try to do that, I'll vote against you.
Even if you don't print money, you can still sell
Treasury
Treasury
bonds. A beautiful scheme. Let's not consult the citizens. Let's just steal from them by secretly removing $20 bills out of their pocket, and we do this by running this thing called the money printer.
If this was so bad for the economy,
pretend it's not true.
Okay, sure. Well, let's say it's so horrible. Why does every single country on the planet have central banking?
Because central governments love money cartels. What could be better for the governments of the world than to have a cartel in which they control the money supply? So all of these governments all over the planet are engaged in this anti-democratic behavior. No citizens actually want this, but no individual countries figured out that if we don't do this, we'll be better than every other country. Wouldn't it be a lot simpler to think maybe they engage in central banking practices because that's just a better way to run an economy? No. This shows a colossal level of naivete. But let me put it this way: the ordinary person thinks that our whole system, including our banking system, works completely differently than it does. So I asked my wife the other day, if you put $1,000 in the bank, what happens to it? She goes, well, it's in the bank. And I go, so if you want to get it anytime, you can just go to the bank and ask for it, and they'll give you $1,000, right? And she goes, yeah, right. And I go, what if I told you that when you put the $1,000 in the bank takes the $1,000, they pluck out 1/10 of it, roughly, about $100, and they lend $900 to another guy, let's say Steve right here. But they don't actually give him the money either. They open up a checking account for $900 in his name. So now you have two guys who both think that they've got the same $900 in the bank, but it doesn't even end there. Let's say that Steve has a deposit in another bank. He goes to the other bank, let's call it Wells Fargo. He deposits his $900. What does that bank do? They take the $900, set aside $90, and loan $810 to another guy, or open up a checking account in his name. What I'm getting at is, whose $1,000 is it? And the answer is the bank, by a cartel arrangement allowed by the Federal Reserve. This would be fraud in any other area.
So it wouldn't be fraud. What you're explaining, it's called fractional reserve banking. Yes, it's what every country on the planet does. But then when your wife says, can I get that $1,000, would you tell her no?
No, I would tell her yes, I would tell her, because even though the money is fictional, it has already been lent out. If you go to the bank, let's just say all of us tomorrow decide to go to the bank and collect our money, and the bank didn't have it. What would they do? Answer, phone call to the Federal Reserve. Print the money. So the backstop.
That's how banking works.
Unlimited ability of the federal government to prevent bank runs of the kind that occurred in the Depression.
Correct. That's why some things are called FDIC insured. So like a savings account would be an FDIC insured product by the bank. Wouldn't it be better for that $1,000 deposited in the bank, instead of just rotting there collecting dust, to be mobilized in the economy so that people could actually do something with it, like have a mortgage for a house, or invest in a business, or do literally anything else besides sit there as termite food?
Okay, so I don't think we need to go into this because you don't even know what you're talking about.
What did I say? Explain to me the velocity of money. Explain to me why it's not good to have money sitting in a bank doing nothing than it is for it to be mobilized in an economy. Tell me.
Okay. No, we're not disagreeing about mobilizing the money. We're disagreeing about the mechanism of doing it and who is left holding the bag. So in the 19th century, we had no Fed. The United States became the largest economy in the world. In the 19th century, we had fractional banking. But if banks couldn't meet their obligations, they went bankrupt. And so there was free market competition among the banks. It was to prevent that free market competition that the Fed was set up. Essentially, what the Fed decided to do...
What the year is 2025, and you want to emulate the banking system we had when there were cowboys and Indians in the 19th, 18th century? How far back do you want to go? We live in a modern world that has modern demands for our monetary system. Why does no other country on the planet employ the obviously superior form of banking that you're talking about?
Because it is in the interest of every single... Every state has recognized for thousands of years that controlling the money supply is the key to controlling the wealth of the country. That is what, in the era of gold, what the governments used to do is take the gold coin and dilute the coin. Put metal into the coin. So the coin, which was supposed to be pure gold, is now only 50% gold or 30% gold. So this racket has been going on for a long time.
So do you think Trump should get rid of FDIC insurance and fractional reserve banking?
FDI insurance is a complete illusion.
So we should get rid of it and go back to the gold standard?
Not the gold standard per se, but we should go back to a free banking system, which would include Bitcoin, which would include all kinds of currencies.
We're talking about fake money and you support Bitcoin?
I said Bitcoin is not fake money. You think something is fake money because, first of all, you give this rhapsody to modern technology, and when finally a form of money is created privately, that cannot be inflated, that has a fixed supply, and that in fact has...
That cannot be inflated. Bitcoin has one of the wildest volatility indexes of any currency on the planet, besides maybe Zimbabwe.
Do you realize that inflating a currency and volatility have nothing to do with each other? Volatility has to do with the market's appraisal of a new product. There is extreme volatility around all the internet companies for about 20 years.
There's no volatility around Bitcoin? You don't
There's a lot of volatility around Bitcoin because the market is full of people who look at this thing, don't understand it, and go, what's this? I've never had private money. To me, a dollar bill needs to be said. It needs to stay on the bill, backed up with the full faith of the U.S. government. Otherwise, it's not money. So this is an ancient way to think. And something like Bitcoin confuses you because it's new.
But so to be clear, it doesn't confuse me. It just doesn't. It makes it so a country loses complete and total control of their money.
Exactly, and that's why you oppose it, because you are a statist and you want your government to control the money supply. No, I oppose it because I took econ in high school and I realized that there's a value to a country being able to control their currency. What is that value?
Well, in times of great economic depression, sometimes it's nice to be able to inflate your currency a little more because that's a preferential state of affairs than half the country going unemployed. Right. Or like we did during the Great Depression. Or other times it might be nice.
It goes back and forth
if you want to.
Right. We look at unemployment, and then we look at how the economy's working, inflation.
Deflate a market that might be running a little bit too hot, like the run-up to the 2008 housing crisis.
So I reject this whole...
And you stand in opposition to central banking across the entire planet.
No, this is a whole...
Jerome Powell just did a whole... his whole press conference was on it.
Keynesian understanding that is itself has all these embedded false assumptions. The false assumptions are that you've got this thing called, quote, the money supply. That the money supply is kind of like a something that can be regulated with a faucet. You turn it up, you turn it down. This was Keynes' justification in the 1930s for an unlimited welfare state. Keynes was very explicit about his motives. He's very explicit about what he was trying to do. Frankly, he was not even an economist. But nevertheless, he advanced this theory, which has been regurgitated to economic students for almost a century now. All I'm saying is that money is valid. No money has intrinsic value.
He shouldn't have taken. He shouldn't have taken debate with Destiny. No.
Intrinsic value. Neither does a $20 bill. By the way, neither does gold if you don't count earrings and ornaments.
To be clear, the dollar has value because the U.S. government accepts it as payment for taxes. Nobody has to accept Bitcoin as payment.
Yeah, exactly. So whoop-de-doo, I take my Bitcoin, I change it to U.S. dollars, and I pay my taxes.
If somebody's willing to buy it from you, yes. But you can't pay your U.S. taxes or U.S. debt obligations in Bitcoin.
So
Dinesh and Stephen, we do have about 15 minutes left, just so you guys know. And I thought maybe we should touch on Trump and political violence, if you feel like it.
Well, we actually haven't talked about the topic of our debate, which I took to be whether Trump on net is a good thing or a bad thing for America. And so I'd like to say a word about why I think a little bit about Trump, the man, and a little bit about what I think he's done for the country. And then maybe you can say the same, and we can kind of get to the heart of what we're talking about. So to me, Trump's first term was very positive for the most part, but kind of blasé. He was stopped in his tracks by 2 years of Russia collusion hoax, but he got a lot of things done. And the economy was in better shape, manifestly pre-COVID, in March of 2020, leading up to the election. Quite frankly, had it not been for COVID, I don't even think election fraud could have helped Joe Biden. But Trump was hit by this, was sideswiped by COVID. But, and that's a fact, Jane Fonda basically said COVID is God's gift to the left. So if you can't see the truth of that...
Jane Fonda.
The years of Biden.
World-renowned political analyst Jane Fonda said this. I don't know if you guys knew that or not.
Were essentially the years of taking the American bus and driving it straight to the cliff. In foreign policy, with the Afghan disgrace, in domestic policy, inflation goes to the highest level that it was going. You have to go back to the 70s to the OPEC.
I thickened up and thinned that wall, so we'll see.
And an open, porous border, which is actually inviting
what happens in the new print
caravans
chat.
of people coming from thousands of miles away. No vetting. Doesn't matter if you're a criminal. There were foreign governments that emptied the jails and boasted about it. And all these thugs, criminals, bad guys, terrorists are now in this country. I think if we had kept going in this way, it's hard to see how the country would survive a whole lot more of this. So Trump's great achievement was to come in and stop this dead in its tracks.
We get it. You don't know how modern monetary theory works.
The border is secure. You probably not only heard, but some of you may have bought into all the embellishment, all the rhetorical ballet. We need comprehensive immigration reform. There's no other way to secure the border. You heard all of this. You might have said it yourself. It's untrue. And Trump had just proved it to be untrue by just showing you can't get in. However, we have somewhere between 8, maybe 10 million illegals who are already here. What do you do with them? Trump is doing the most humane thing he could do. If it were me, I would ask all 8 to 10 million to leave. I recognize that certain things are a fait accompli. You might have Americans who came 20 years ago and they've got kids here, they're embedded in our society. I'm willing to be prudent about the issue in some ways, but I don't see any reason why people who essentially...
Why are U.S. citizens getting rounded up, buddy? U.S. citizens are being arrested by Oz.
Came across the border in the last 4 years under Biden as part of a cynical scheme to create future Democratic voters. Why those people should not be asked to leave now.
Never happened.
So I would go much further than Trump and try to get these people to self-deport if they would.
Trying to get this super glue off my finger.
Sensible, pragmatic ways to get them out. But they have broken the law and they need to pay a price for it. Now, on the foreign policy front, Trump's view is really simple. I'm not going to get involved in expensive foreign wars, but there are many bad guys in the world, and I will not hesitate to pulverize them. This applies to Soleimani. It applies to Baghdadi. If I have one criticism of Trump, I think he didn't go far enough with Iran. I think that Israel was pretty close to toppling the Iranian regime. That would have been excellent regime change. Many people who think regime change doesn't work don't realize that you're operating off basically two examples, Iraq and maybe Afghanistan, where it actually worked for a while, but was handled very badly in the overall. But regime change, if you look at the examples of...
He's the type that says I made it and then pulls the ladder up behind him, right?
The last 100 years has mostly worked and worked for the better. And I think it would work for the better in Venezuela. I think it would work for the better in Iran. And I think Trump stopped it in Iran, which
I made it. I don't know why these other dirty immigrants can't make it.
I oppose. I think he is trying to get rid of Maduro in Venezuela. My wife is Venezuelan. Pretty much any living Venezuelan who's outside of Venezuela will tell you they fled the country. Maduro is a one-party dictator. The reason Maduro loves Democrats is because he sees them as his allies. The question of displacing him under Biden never even arose. But I think his days are numbered, as Trump says. Trump will probably get him out. And then you look at the economic front, and Trump is doing two things. One is he is creating a kind of he's essentially unleashing America.
Not lowering inflation while also raising our unemployment. Those are the two things he's been doing. Which really puts the Fed in a bind, right? Because they use the interest rate to control inflation and unemployment, but they're opposite of each other, right?
American energy, the United States, as it turns out, has giant energy resources, probably more than enough for the next 100 years. Our main obstacle is we just don't go get it.
And he crashed the oil market. We can't even afford to go get it.
And all kinds of reasons, environmental reasons, obviously people who are in the business have reasons to block it. Trump's point is, why don't we unleash energy? And so if we unleash energy, we unleash AI.
That's a good catchphrase. But when you go and negotiate with OPEC to drop oil below fucking $55 a barrel in our own, we can't even afford to go get it.
Unleash robotics. We are looking at a potential era of abundance. By the way, Bitcoin is a big part of that. So Trump is turning the levers of creating massive abundance in the United States. It may even be that some of our problems like the debt can be washed away in this abundance. You don't have to scrounge on Social Security. You don't have to screw the Gen Zs or screw the boomers. We will actually have the wealth to do this. Do you know that the Biden...
You can't screw the boomers. They're on their way out. They've already made their fortune.
People were basically blocking AI under the pretext that we'll only allow it if we control it. This is what the Biden people were telling the high-tech guys. We'll only play ball with you if you basically turn over the levers to us. Otherwise, we're not going to allow it. So what we're seeing under Trump...
No proof of that claim. Right? AI should be regulated heavily, at least oversight. Right?
I think it's something that...
Even Elon Musk used to preach this before he got in the AI game, and now he's trying to race open AI. Right? He used to talk about how scary it was, and in the wrong hands, they could do this, they could do that. And
it's quite epical. It might take us years to be able to look and see what was unleashed. It's kind of like in the 1980s under Reagan. We could see something big was happening. Microsoft was starting. I ran into a conference. There was Michael Dell. The tech revolution was getting going. And it's done a lot for the world. So my case for Trump is that this guy, being transactional, actually understands very well how the world works, is not unwilling to use U.S. muscle in trade deals or in the leverage of foreign policy power. And the best that his critics have are these kind of whiny, let's go back to the Mar-a-Lago case and look at it in excruciating detail because we really...
I'm printing a new one, Chad. It'll take 5 hours to print the fucking bottom because of the way I'm printing it, but it turns out really nice. It's got a texture on it called fuzzy skin, and I know you guys probably can't see that, but it's basically like a textured outside. It looks nice. Makes it look kind of high-end, but it takes some time.
You could have gotten him then. This is a pathetic way to go after a guy.
Okay, let's go back. Let's go back from the last thing you mentioned to the first. So what is Trump trying to do with tariffs?
What Trump is trying to do with tariffs is this. The United States sells stuff abroad, and other countries, India...
This guy's made his whole career off this, right? Death of a Nation, Obama's America, 2,000 Mules, America, Imagine the World Without Us, Hillary's America, The Secret History of the Deep State, The Trump Card, Vindicating Trump, Police State, Infidel. These are all movies that he worked on, right? He's made his whole life around... He can't back off of it now. Even if his own wife was getting deported. Like, he's got to make a decision, like, am I going to keep my career or my wife? One of the two.
Australia, many others, place giant tariffs on those products. Sometimes...
What is Trump trying to do with the tariffs?
Trump is trying to do two things. One is he's trying to use the tariffs as a form of strong arming or arm wrestling, basically saying, I will put tariffs on you, and I will only take them off if you take off yours.
Then why does he keep changing them to countries like China?
Okay, so be aware that this has actually not even been seriously...
Flip-flops. Flip-flop, 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 flip-flop.
Attempted before.
Because it's illegal.
Governments were
It's illegal.
It's not illegal.
The president can't... Do you think the president of the United States is allowed to do unilateral econ policy?
It is illegal. That's why they're shutting it down, because he claims that he had a national emergency declared because fentanyl for some reason.
The president of the United States has a lot of economic levers that he can use.
In times of national crises.
Exactly.
Our debt is not a national crisis. If it was, Trump would be even worse for it. But
well,
so we have no trade deals.
I mean, I've got it sped up to 1.5 times speed, and I love his.
In times of national crises.
I don't know how I got muted earlier. I saw y'all talking about it in the chat. I don't know. I must hit a button.
Exactly.
Our debt is not a national crisis. If it was, Trump would be even worse for it. But
well,
so we have no trade deals.
I think that $38 trillion of debt.
Mm-hmm.
It's hilarious that they talk about how good Trump is with the economy, and you point to, what about the Mexico-Canada trade deal? Right? He said it was the most institutionally, it was the biggest fucking trade deal ever. Right? It was going to be great for America. It was good, and that was his first term in office. It was the greatest thing America had ever seen. And in the second time in office, he's like, "Who the fuck signed this trade deal? We got to get some tariffs going." You got us in that first trade deal.
I think that a stagnating economy, I think that a...
Why did you say that the first Trump term was a good one? He added to the debt more than he needed to, right?
He added to the debt, which you'd have to put into the negative column. I mean, all presidents have added to the debt. Just look at the, essentially one out of every, I think, $4 in the country today was generated starting in 2020.
Sure, Trump is continuing to add to it even more.
Yes,
right? Trump won't have a single budget surplus by the end of his presidential term, right?
Look, you should be happy with him for this. Trump is, in fact...
No, he won't have a budget surplus by the end of his 4-year term.
Trump is a big spender when it comes to spending money. He's more like a Democrat in that regard.
Well, no, because Republicans have been the big spenders, right? Isn't a Democrat the last one with a budget surplus? Clinton?
Yeah. When I first joined the Army, I grew up super conservative, a small town, churches everywhere, and literally, like, that was part of your, I don't know, that was part of your personality, was being like Republican. Like everybody was, everybody you knew was, everybody talked about it, everybody talked shit about Obama and all this shit, right? And I first joined the Army. Somehow politics come up with my truck commander. And I asked him, this is the first time I kind of looked into like the left versus the right thing, even though I didn't get out of the right for a long time after this. I asked my truck commander, I was like, well, what do you think about whatever? And he said, I don't know, but one thing for sure I do know, I've never made more money in my life. And this was in 2007, 2008. He said, I've never made more money in my life than I did under Clinton. And I'm a Republican. And I thought, there's no way, right? Because the Republicans are always the one like, we're here for you, we're going to get money, and we're just going to trickle down, and you're going to get it because tax breaks and this and blah, 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 blah. And the Democrats want to pay for everything, to everybody to have something for free. And, but the way you grew up with this mentality just shoved down your fucking throat. And that was the first time I went after that. I forgot what we were doing. We were on a range or something when I asked him that. We got back out of the field. I went on the internet, started looking about like the money and the surplus and Bill Clinton, and I just dismissed it all, right? Because it was so ingrained in me that that's who I was. But it was true.
Can we not agree on basic facts here?
Clinton was,
right?
Come on.
Wasn't Bush the Republican the one that started all of the foreign wars?
The Clinton surplus was 100% the result of a peace dividend created by the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Surplus is a surplus.
A surplus is a surplus, but
I thought Donald Trump, you said collapse of the Soviet Union. Doesn't Donald Trump have like 9 country wars that he's ended? So we should have tons of surplus then, right? Do you agree? You acknowledge that by the end of Trump's 4 years, we will not be at a budget surplus, right?
I agree.
Okay, so then
you're missing the argument I made.
You just said he might solve the $30 trillion of debt, and now you're saying it's not going to take away from the budget deficit.
Well, you weren't listening to me.
Right. If he can't even fix the current budget deficit, how the fuck is he going to make enough to take away from it, right? The $30-some trillion, whatever it is.
What I was saying was, one way to solve the debt is to start paying it off. That's a very painful way when you consider that not only the vast majority of our budget is currently in entitlements, but those entitlements are scheduled to increase dramatically. So this is a painful way to do it. You can see why our congressmen and senators in both parties don't want to do that.
Well, but the person who hurt paying it off the most was Trump with the tax cuts, and they did it this year when they solidified the tax cuts, didn't they?
The very best way to...
Yes, they made it fucking horrible. Actually, our cup guy, Sully Dog or whatever, he just did a new... Hold on, let's go look at that. Or in this. He just did a new cup video. And I've already seen it, but I'll let you watch it quickly. Because I'm going to go use the restroom. Wash my hands, but still. Was it this one? When the math is visible. Yeah, let me kill my camera, and I'll be right back. Check out Sully's new video on the cup math.
Welcome back, America. Today we're doing some more visual math because it's easy and it works. And we're going to explain a bill that creates jobs, lowers the deficit, and cuts costs. Stop partisan. This is math, and we should all want to understand where jobs, lower costs, and deficit reduction come from, because it's going to lead us right to the Inflation Reduction Act. This video is going to show you what real investment into the Made in America philosophy, and contrast that with the myth that tax cuts create jobs. Republicans have been cutting taxes my entire life, and they have decades of proof that it doesn't trickle down. Each cup, $5 billion. This green pyramid shows you what $500 billion looks like. It's the same size as these light blue cups. That is the $500 billion that we invested into the Inflation Reduction Act to rebuild the U.S. manufacturing and supply chains. And according...
Yeah, Dinesh, I needed a win. I've been feeling like shit. I'm glad Destiny fucking walked him like a dog
to the Congressional Budget Office. This $500 billion is paid for by $738 billion in revenue and savings, cutting the deficit by nearly $250 billion. These dark blue cups show you the positive return. You put in 500, you get out 738 plus 270,000 jobs. This bill creates jobs, lowers the deficit, lowers prescription drugs, everything you could want, and yet every Republican voted against.
It was amazing. He's doing well.
When the Democrats were in charge, we used our bargaining power against Big Pharma to lower drug prices.
I'm actually from Alberta, Canada.
And reduce.
Born and raised.
This law lowers the price on critical drugs like Eliquis and Jardiance, plus 8 more in 2026, 15 more blockbuster drugs in 2027. That's what governing looks like. Now look at the big, beautiful bill right here, and this is just a fraction of that deficit monster, as you can see from the illustration above me.
3.7 trillion, 500 billion, 270 billion for hedge funds, 110 billion for corporate loopholes, 83 billion for billion. But don't forget, chat, in case you're ever like, man, why don't the government ever do anything for me? You can write off 100% of a yacht purchase this year. Born and raised, Alberta, Canada. 100% of a mega yacht that you purchase this year, you can write it off. So the next time you're like, the government doesn't do shit for me, I'm going to bring that up, you sons of bitches.
That $500 billion pyramid isn't an investment. It's a hedge fund tax cut, pass-through loophole, corporate giveaway, billionaire protections, no jobs, zero, no revenue, no jobs, no nothing, just deficit. This pyramid also, they had a nearly...
I am a paid actor in this video.
100-year-old tax on gun silencers they repealed. It had been in effect since the 1930s, adding $1.5 billion to the deficit, not to fund health care, not to build infrastructure, not to support veterans, gun silencers. That was their...
I don't really mind the gun silencer one. They just took the tax stamp off of it starting 2026. And a silencer isn't what most people, like Hollywood, would have you believe, or the news or whatever. You can still hear it. You can still whatever. But they are pretty cool.
Priority. This is public record. One bill raises $238 billion and lowers the deficit. The other is undeniable evidence that the oligarchs are in control. And the math is right in front of you. Denying the math is denying the truth. Show me one Republican bill in the last 40 years that created jobs and reduced the deficit, because the Congressional Budget Office is going to keep pointing us back to Democratic policy. America,
you still have to file the paperwork. You just don't need the tax stamp.
Put facts ahead of division and break through this propaganda, please drop me a comment. Facts matter. That's how this reaches the people who need to see it. Please consider a like, a follow, a share, because cups talk and bullshit walks. I hope you learned something, and I'm always rooting for you. Welcome back.
That was Sully's video. He basically goes into, obviously, it doesn't look good for Republicans. It never does. But they'll sell it really well, right? And all that money will just trickle down like a golden shower.
To that is to enlarge the economic pie,
which he's shrinking more than he should be. It should be growing faster, but the tariffs have hurt.
And what I was saying,
why did they solidify?
It's not only silencers. It's silencers, short-barreled shotguns, short-barreled rifles, all the stuff that you need the $200 tax stamp for. You still have to file the paperwork, but it's a $0 fee to file it.
I was saying that the combined effect, in my opinion, of energy unleashing, AI, and robotics, the United States has been growing at a rate of somewhere around 1 to 2% for now decades. It was growing at 3 to 4% in the middle of the last century. If we can create growth rates of 5, 6, 9%, which are entirely in the realm of possibility,
when you heard
it's
every other country on the planet,
ATF Form 4, I think. ATF Form 4 and the background check with the fingerprints and all that shit, but it's $0.
like we've done with the tariffs. You acknowledge, for instance, when Trump held up the tariff sign, that all those numbers were a lie, right? None of those tariffs were accurate for any other country, right? Can you at least acknowledge that simple basic fact that all the numbers on that chart were a lie? They used a math formula.
What is not a lie?
Yes, none of them were reciprocal. They made them all up. Some type of AI algorithm where they said, give us a rate based on trade imbalance versus tariffs versus whatever. That was all a lie.
It's not a lie.
But was that a lie, though?
What is not
Wasn't
a lie?
that a lie?
What is not
Wasn't
a lie?
that a lie, though? When he held up the sign, didn't he lie to the American public, to you and me and everybody else in here and the entire world when he said, these are the tariffs that every other country has on us? That was a lie, right?
Well, it was a negotiating tactic.
So it was a lie to negotiate?
It was a lie. It was a negotiating tactic. He can't say it's true because it wasn't.
It's a negotiating tactic. Look.
But it was a lie then. We can at least say it was a lie to negotiate. It was a lie, right?
Trump
Who was he negotiating with? The Fox News ratings?
No.
His YouTube views? It was a lie.
Are you saying that if
I'm saying it was a lie. I'm saying those numbers were a lie.
I'm saying if I'm negotiating with you.
Yeah, and you lied to me. I would negotiate with you. But those numbers were a lie, right?
if I'm negotiating with you and an NPR reporter comes to me and asks me something and I say, this is going to be the result, I'm actually speaking to you, but if I were to tell the NPR, oh, guess what? Let me give you my actual negotiating position, okay? Because you can then put it on NPR and the Chinese will figure it out by tomorrow morning.
I think I would probably use the massive governmental apparatus I have to negotiate to do that because that seems like a more appropriate
because the massive governmental apparatus that we have is proven to be completely and utterly incompetent.
Gotcha. So then everything that comes from the Trump administration I should interpret as being potentially fallacious. It could all be a lie because he's trying to negotiate with other people.
I'm saying negotiation is a moving ball. I'm saying that Trump is very capable of putting on a tariff and saying, I'm going to put on this tariff on January 7th, and then he doesn't do it. Is he lying? No, he's not lying.
No, that's
he's
what we're talking about.
threatening to do it.
Well, he did do it, number one.
For it.
The big chart was a lie. Why can't we just admit that? This is why I'm talking about the very beginning of the conversation.
They can't admit anything.
I'm saying that these bombastic claims
were lies.
In the course of negotiation, it doesn't even matter because the real issue.
I don't care if Appalachia gets fucking mellowed out, I guess. Everything does. Every community, every aspect, everything does.
Is what are you getting in the deal?
If I don't know if you saw me walk up on stage, but if I put in my Tinder profile that I'm 6'2", and I show up at my date with really good posture, does that count as just being bombastic, or would that be a lie?
Right, let me give you an example for why.
Well, let's have an example. How about when the president held up a board with a bunch of tariff numbers and they were all lies? Wouldn't that be a lie?
There's an example.
Can we say that was a lie?
I'm saying that presidents, in the course of foreign policy and trade negotiations, every president lies to us all the time.
Give me an example of a single other example where a president has lied like that to the American public.
Okay, I would say that every deal that the United States has
One example.
Okay, I'll give you 10 examples.
Just one. I see one.
Yeah. Okay. So the United States, for example,
specific
lies about its dealings with terrorists. It lies about Reagan lied about.
I'm sorry. Hold on. National security secrets with terrorists and corporate things are not economic deals. We don't lie. The American president doesn't lie to the public about economic deals.
We're not talking about national security secrets. I'm talking about national security policies.
I'm talking about economic trade deals.
I'm saying economic for Trump. When you're dealing with foreign adversaries, the distinction between a trade deal and a hostage swap and a deal with Maduro to get out, these are all on a continuum.
Maybe that's the problem with Trump.
That's
every single thing with him feels like a hostage negotiation.
Well, because it is. That's the way the world is.
with you, it is. That's not the way the world is, though.
Most people would say that, Billy, right? If you're negotiating with me and you start with a fucking lie, why would we continue negotiating?
No, it is the way the world is.
Trump knows he's kind of got them hostage, right? Because our economy size and how much and imports, exports, all that. But still, it's very disingenuous to start with a lie.
You realize he holds our allies hostage, he has our economy hostage, he's holding immigrants hostage, sometimes illegally detained or otherwise, and he lies to us in order to sell his deals to personally enrich
Maduro has a call with Trump. Maduro makes a call to Trump. Maduro says, I'm going now based on public reports. Maduro says, give me $100 million, thereabouts. Let me stick in there for a few months. Let my handpicked deputy Delcy Rodriguez run, and I will actually have a free election. This is Maduro in the phone call to Trump. Trump says nothing about any of this. Trump comes and says something completely unrelated, which on the face
notice
of
how we're not talking about the lie about the tariffs at all. You're talking about like national security, military related stuff. I'm just saying Donald Trump lied with the tariffs. It's very obvious that he lied. We have 0 trade deals right now, even though we say we'd have 100 deals in 100 days or 90 deals in 90 days.
Are you saying, okay, let me ask you this.
I'm saying he lied about the tariffs.
What amount of money does the U.S. Treasury...
He lied. Just admit, why you keep saying other things? You went into the military and posturing, and he lied on this chart when he put it up and told the American people this.
...have as a result of tariffs that it wouldn't otherwise have. What is that number?
Wasn't it 200 billion or something? I don't remember. What was it?
You don't know?
No, because
you
it's
have
way
no
less.
idea.
Well, it's way less than what we would have got if we would have just not kept those tax cuts that Trump solidified with the OBBA or whatever.
Yes.
So you don't even know what it is, but you are quite sure that it would have been more if he didn't do it.
Well, I know it's in the ballpark.
And so what I'm getting at is...
What is the number? Wait, what is the number? Yes, it's about, isn't it about...
It's a giant number, right? So the number...
But you have no idea. You're saying, I don't have an idea.
You don't know either, motherfucker.
The number... Hold on.
I think our having no ideas are very different. I'm just saying it's in the ballpark of like 200 billion-ish.
Okay, I can estimate the number because we're talking about a number. We're talking about a $2,000 rebate to all Americans who
No,
make
we're not.
under $100,000.
That's not happening. That's not going to happen.
Okay, all right.
It's not. I'll bet you. I'll give you 10 to 1 odds on $100 if you want.
So,
That'll never happen.
Let's put it this way.
Okay.
You are less curious about the actual tariff revenue benefit than you are to scoring a gotcha on a press conference where you go, Trump misrepresented the tariffs, which is admittedly a moving target, but the actual benefit to U.S. citizens is a matter of complete indifference to you.
Import taxes. Do you admit that a tariff is an import tax?
A tariff is an import tax that can be borne either by the... No, it doesn't follow. It can be borne either by the producer or the consumer.
It's paid for by the consumer.
Okay, economic illiteracy 101. Let's look at an example. No, false. Let's say I'm Mercedes. Okay, I'm Mercedes-Benz, and I'm charging...
Let me
hold on.
because I already know the explanation. Because I already know the explanation. Make it faster. You're going to say that technically the producer or the supplier of a thing can actually decrease their prices a little bit in order to make the price a little bit more bearable at home because of the import taxes that are being paid. And you would be
But it's still to make it bearable to you, right? So you're still paying it, motherfucker.
correct in that. An economic analysis, a true one, would yield that it's about 50-50 paid for by the consumer and the producer. That's still a bad state of affairs.
Okay.
We're paying an import tax, and now we have the ability to import less, and the foreign suppliers are supplying us less as a result of it. If you want to go with the actual econ answer, that's fine. These are the same economists, by the way, that all support central banking and currency controls and everything else, by the way. They're happy to cite here, and they're all opposed to tariffs as a form of economic policy as well.
All right. Well, all I'm saying is that
I'm glad he did that faster. I couldn't stand for Dinesh to fucking fumble his way through it.
a minute ago, you said that tariffs were borne by the consumer. And then you suddenly realize that that's not true and that Mercedes...
They still are. Even if we do 50-50, there's still an import tax. And the only reason that they may or may not reduce their price is so it's easier for us to bear. Who to bear? Us. The consumer. It doesn't even get assigned until it gets stateside, right? Then they write you a fucking bill for it.
They are going to increase the cost of a Mercedes, let's just say by $40,000. Now going to realize that many people would rather buy other types of cars or American-made cars. And so Mercedes decides, listen, we're making 40 grand on a car. We can't afford to eat the entire tariff, but maybe we can afford to eat 30K and we'll only make $10,000.
Yeah, okay. Mercedes is going to eat $30,000 loss on every car that rolls off the show. Okay.
On a car, and businesses make these decisions all the time.
It doesn't happen.
And you actually know it because you just admitted it.
I didn't
but
admit it.
earlier you were trying to con the audience.
I was giving a simplified answer to somebody who found out they just found out what fractional reserve banking was like 10 weeks ago.
It's not a simplified answer.
The question is,
no.
at some point they will stop producing. They stop producing. They just won't make those products.
It's not a simplified answer. You were lying to the audience in the hope that you could get away with it. I called you on it. You quickly beat a retreat. And so, because you realize I can't get away with this lie, I now have to explain the process in which prices are determined.
Okay, you know what? Hold on. You got me completely in a lie. Would you admit that an income tax isn't borne completely by a worker then? And then companies are forced to offer higher wages as a result of potentially higher income taxes?
Companies are not forced to do anything.
Oh my God.
So he's lying on both ends. He can't even bring this thought process through income tax and employers. Like he wants it again with his I donated to my friend, but I knew they would lose. But no one donates ever to a politician unless they want a favor.
Stephen and Dinesh, final thoughts, guys. We got to do final thoughts.
Okay, I'll finish my thought. I have worked all my life in companies. Our tax rates, the tax rate when I started working in the early 90s, this is as a result of the Reagan tax cuts, by the way, the top marginal tax rate had dropped from 70% to 28%. It's now up to about 39%. So all my adult life, I've seen taxes go up from 28 to 39%. I have never been in a job, and I've been in many of them, where my employer said, oh, the government raised your taxes, we're going to raise your pay. The company might be nice and do that. You might be able to negotiate it through a union, but the idea, again, another like whopper, that it's somehow an automatic process, that if the government raises your taxes, that correspondingly companies raise, he said, are forced to raise your salaries commensurate with those taxes, and I'm saying that's simply untrue.
So for some reason, producers will lower their sales price.
I'm saying that producers will...
Exactly.
Because of the competitiveness of the market,
there's no competitive,
and there isn't this margin where like we're making this and we're making $40,000 per unit. That doesn't exist, right? They already have to. So every producer already has to weigh their margin with how much money can we make, and people will still fucking buy it because there's a point where people will stop buying it, right? Let's say they're making $5,000 profit per unit, right, per car or whatever. And they say, okay, well, we can bump that up to 7. We can bump that up to 9. We can bump that up to 11. At some point, people are going to be like, this is ridiculous. I can't afford it, right? I'll hang on to my car longer. And some people will still buy it, right? A fraction of people will still buy it, but they can see sales trends. And none of that is built on the back of 100% tariff on top of that. And we'll just eat the cost. Doesn't happen.
in the labor market in the United States?
Exactly. There is competitiveness in the labor market. So if the government raises your taxes, companies, by the way, are not in any position where they have to do anything because the taxes are being raised uniformly.
Not only is there state taxes that are higher in some states than there are others, and guess what? Companies offer more compensation in those states than they do in other states.
Because they have to, in that case, yes, they have to attract labor from Texas to come and work in.
Oh, in that case, yes. But not in the case that I made up in my head where it doesn't happen. He just said, I've never said, ever has this ever happened in the history of the United States. Well, in that case, yes. Yes.
But I was talking about a federal tax which applies uniformly where those pressures.
Well, that's interesting. You bring up the different markets might engage in different tax behavior. Wouldn't it be harmful for U.S. markets if the U.S. was the only country that was levying these massive tariffs on other countries who were bilaterally tariffing us? Doesn't that make our market less?
So we tried this with China. You know, China's had this gigantic tariff and it's been up, it's been down, but it's always been a huge tariff that Trump's put on China. China, for the first time ever in the history of being China, hit a $1 trillion trade surplus. Everybody told us, like, oh, America's not going to buy their stuff. They're going to have to lower the price. They're going to have to eat the tariff. They're going to do this. They're going to do a $1 trillion trade surplus. They're doing better on exports than they ever have, ever. And all their markets at every other country around the world besides the U.S. dipped. Every other market that they're in, every other country that they're in, went up. Wild, huh?
Competitive than foreign markets now who don't have those same arbitrary U.S. tariffs that all came from a big poster board that was full of lies, remember?
Well,
right?
here
they don't have those tariffs on them.
Here we get to the fact that there are many countries that don't allow our products in at all. And if they allow them, they have high tariffs in place. So here's my question. You know, it's really wonderful to hear all these guys give economic analysis. Tariffs are self-defeating. They are horrible for countries.
No, across the board, yes. They're really, 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 really fucking bad, right? It locks us out. It fucks people over. We're having to pay them. It's bad for the economy. It's bad for unemployment. It's bad for everything. Targeted, specific. Like, let's say we have to protect our steel mills because national defense and it's propping up an entire state. Like, if we lose all the steel mill business, this whole state will collapse, and then we'll have these workers out. Targeted, yes. Or let's say you want to compete in electric vehicles, right? That's another thing we do. The Chinese electric vehicles. We feel like that's a market we want to protect our electric vehicles. So we basically tariff out and ban these super cheap Chinese electric vehicles. Even though that'd be really good for the consumer, it would destroy this business we're trying to build. Targeted, yes. Across the board, everything that comes from your country has 100% tariff on it. And if you get mad about it, it's 200%. It's fucking stupid.
Undermine our own consumers. And here's my question. Why does every other country have them?
They don't. That's the answer.
They don't.
There's a reason why Ukraine wanted to join the European Union market.
Well, let's talk about India.
Russia.
India
We're gonna have to save it for round
No across the board ones. No other country's doing that.
two, guys. But can we at least agree on the importance of public intellectual debate like this?
I think we can, and this has been very spirited. I've actually enjoyed it. I knew I was kind of
God damn, you lost, bro.
coming a bit in the lion's den, but I thought that I would take up the challenge, and I think it's been really interesting and really good. So I'm glad we had a chance to do the sparring.
I appreciate you for coming out, yeah.
We need more of this. I agree.
All right, let's give them a big round of applause. This has been the battle for the capital. Stephen Bonnell, Destiny.
He'll not be speaking to Destiny again.
And Dinesh D'Souza. Big round of applause. All right, we are going to take a really quick break while we set up for the poster signing here. Everyone feel free to mingle around, hang out, have a drink. Yeah, we're going to get set up just to the...
that was pretty good.
The Christmas setup there. We're going to be setting up a table. But stretch your legs, relax, use the bathroom, have a drink.
I'm glad. I needed a win.
Yeah,
I was struggling over here. All right, let's talk about... Susie Wiles, man. This was, let's start here first. Susie Wiles let it all out.
Donald Trump is suing the BBC for billions of dollars. That is what is...
So basically the crime the BBC did, allegedly, according to Trump, is they took one part of his speech. Everything that they used, he said. They took one part of his speech and a second part of his speech and cut out some in the middle of it. So the fight like hell, we're going to march down the Capitol. They didn't include where he's like, oh, peacefully and this and that and all the other shit. That's all they did.
Right now, what we're finding,
they edited down what an hour and fucking 40 some minutes to a couple minutes.
Donald Trump just filed a lawsuit against the BBC seeking at least $5 billion in damages. The lawsuit circles around how the BBC had edited Donald Trump's January 6 in a documentary for Panorama. Trump claims that the broadcaster had intentionally and deceptively stitched together lines from nearly an hour apart to make it sound like he urged supporters to fight at the U.S. Capitol. The BBC had previously admitted that, yeah, this edit did happen in error of judgment and then issued an apology, but said there was no legal basis for this claim. But as we have seen, the fallout from this was massive. Last month, we saw the head of the BBC News and the BBC's Director General both put in their resignation and say they're out. Trump filed a lawsuit in Florida claiming that the BBC does substantial business in the United States because of its website. But the one thing that you need to think about here is that Trump's legal team in fighting this is trying to claim that this edit aired just before the 2024 election and it actually amounted to election interference. Here's the deal. The episode of Panorama never aired in the United States.
Never, not once.
Which
no, Trump was 100%, I believe, calling for violence, and all these other clips. Destiny does a good job of going over his speech. He got exactly what he wanted. He wanted them to go down there and stop, slow, impede the certification of the vote, and they did.
Minute. There's no legal argument in there. At this time, the BBC has not responded to this since it is the middle of the night inside of London. But this case, as it moves forward, will test how far the U.S. courts can reach into foreign media organizations. And if the courts rule in Donald Trump's favor, that could be a problem for world news inside of literally any other country. Donald Trump is suing the BBC for billions of dollars. That is what is.
And they come out and did their apology thing, but I don't think they're not waiting for a fucking merger that Trump has to approve, like fucking Paramount and Skydance and all that shit. Like he's not gonna get the thing. He's not gonna get the same thing. No way.
Hello, good evening. Tim Davie has tonight resigned as Director General of the BBC, along with the CEO of BBC News, Deborah Turness, after a week of criticism of BBC News coverage and allegations of editorial mistakes.
The episode spliced together portions of Trump's speech to make it seem like he explicitly called for violence at the Capitol.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
All things he fucking said, right? He did say we're going to walk down the Capitol. He did say that we're going down there, I'm going with you, and we're going to fight like hell. If you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. That was the precursor to sending them there.
Now it is up to Congress to confront this egregious assault.
This is unedited, apparently.
On our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down, anyone you want, but I think right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol. And we're going to cheer on our brave senators and Congress.
And he literally told them that Mike Pence had to do the right thing, and if he didn't, and they were there to hang Mike Pence, it was fucking crazy, dude.
And we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them. But I said, something's wrong here. Something's really wrong. Can't have happened. And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Our exciting adventures and boldest endeavors have not yet begun.
What happened here today was an insurrection.
That's what he wanted. He wanted people to go down. They did exactly. He told them to come, that it was going to be wild.
Incited by the President of the United States.
He's a piece of shit for January 6th. 100%.
To support his dangerous gambit by objecting to the results of a legitimate democratic election will forever be seen as being complicit in an unprecedented attack against our democracy.
187 minutes he watched the Capitol under siege, did nothing. His own fucking people around him, right? His own advisors and shit, begged him to come out and make a speech, tell him to go home, stop it, do something. 187 minutes he sat there. Watched it happen. Then he came out and said, "We love you, you're special, go home." Yeah, fuck him. All right, now Susie Wiles. The BBC might be the fight he's looking for, right? They haven't done anything illegal, first of all. It wasn't election interference. It didn't even air inside the United States. But the BBC has the weight of the British government behind it. Like, if they really want to gear up for a fight, which Trump will just find ways to fuck them over because he's president of the United States in other ways, right? And try to put pressure on them. But here we go. Trump top aide. This is Susie Wiles, who's kind of been super quiet. She did the Vanity Fair piece. So here we go.
Turning now to Susie Wiles. This just broke this morning. We had to add this in. This is one of the craziest interviews by a senior White House official I have ever seen in my life. In any other White House, any other time, normal time, she's getting fired today. Under this president, who knows? Let's put this up here on the screen. This is a New York Times write-up of a multi-page interview that Susie Wiles has been sitting.
President Trump's chief of staff said she tried to get him to end his score settling against political enemies after 90 days in office, but acknowledged that the administration's still ongoing push for prosecutions has been fueled in part by the president's desire for retribution. Like, literally, just because he's mad at these people and he thinks they did something to him, that's the only reason they're being prosecuted.
With Vanity Fair for over the last year, in which she gets candid about the entire Trump presidency, admits that many of the things that the White House said are lies, admits that Elon is using ketamine. She criticizes the president. She says that the vice president is a conspiracy theorist who his conversion to away from never Trumpism was political. She says Trump has an alcoholic personality. So let me read from the New York Times write-up of this lengthy Vanity Fair profile. President Trump's chief of staff said she tried to get him to end his...
Shout out to Destiny, by the way. He did really good in that debate. I've never spoken to him, but I admire him.
Score settling against political enemies after 90 days in office, but acknowledged the administration's still ongoing push for prosecutions has been fueled in part by the president's desire for retribution. So, number one, the mortgage fraud case against Letitia James or against James Comey, all of that, it's not about the case. It's political retribution.
Yeah, he accidentally sent a text message as a social media post where he's like, Bondi, when you going after these people?
From the president. She just tweeted it out. That's an old meme from the 2010s, is just tweeting out what, as journalists, we've been working on this story, trying to prove that this is the true reason why Trump is doing this, even though, yes, it's obvious, we need evidence. And now we have the White House chief of staff. He's like, oh, yeah, he's doing it for political retribution purposes. That's what these prosecutions are about. Okay, let's sit with that.
And she tried to get it. She knew she couldn't talk him out of completely saying, I won't go after these people just because I'm fucking pissy. So instead, she tried to give him a 90-day, like, first 90 days, do what you got to do, get even, whatever. After that, we're done. And he's still doing it.
So with that, as we continue, again, for over 11 interviews that she's given, the vice president, she said, quote, has been a conspiracy theorist for a decade. His conversion from Trump critic to ally was based not on principle, but was sort of political. Elon Musk is an event.
Yes, it was not based. It was based not on principle, but was political. J.D. Vance flipped from anti-Trump to pro-Trump, not based on principle, but political.
Ketamine user, an odd duck whose actions were not always rational and left her, quote, aghast. Russ Vought, the budget director, quote, is a right-wing absolute zealot. And the attorney general, Pam Bondi, quote, completely whiffed in handling of the Epstein files.
She called them all out, dude. I wonder how Trump, I wanted to see if Trump would address this or if she ends up firing, but she's big for Trump, dude. She helps Trump a lot.
By the way, to say, about Venezuela, this is my personal favorite. She said here about the boats that the policy of the United States is that, or for Donald Trump, is to, quote, blow up as many boats as possible until Maduro decides to leave office. That's what she said. So admitting...
By the way, Trump still, right now, 47 minutes ago, still blaming Brown University for having a shooter on their campus. 47 minutes ago said, why did Brown University have so few security cameras? There can be no excuse for that in a modern age. It just doesn't get worse, President DJT, because he knows the FBI has zero, nothing, zilch. They don't have this shooter.
None of this is about drugs. It's not about fentanyl, which is all bullshit. Which, again, I knew that. I've been saying that here. But to have the White House chief of staff just come out and be like, oh, yeah, it's all fake and it's about regime change. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Madam Susie Wiles. Continuing here, describing Trump as an alcoholic personality with respect to, quote.
So yesterday or the day before, when asked in a press conference, like, has it been hard, is this tough to identify this? And he's like, you'd have to ask Brown University. This was their deal. The FBI came in after the shoot. Yeah, the FBI always comes in after the fucking shooting, you retard.
operates with the view that there's nothing he can't do. That's not usually something I would describe as an alcoholic, but okay. She said so much of her job revolves around the president's personality and stream of consciousness, public comments. She said that during the whole tariffs thing, that the Vice President, J.D. Vance, was sent in to convince Trump to pump the brakes on tariffs. And she said that there was a huge disagreement, that they were deciding, people were predicting disaster on USAID. She thinks no rational person could think the USAID process was a good one.
No rational person could think the way they shut down USAID was a good process. They just shut everything off. They had food rotting and being incinerated and people starving and medical fucking stopping, all that. She was just like, it's bullshit, which that was another Elon Musk thing.
Buddy, I mean, the whole thing is crazy, and we're just scratching the surface. I haven't even been able to get even all of them just yet, what these comments are, but trashing the cabinet, admitting the Epstein files is a huge problem, says she can't understand why Ghislaine Maxwell was moved to a different prison, says that the Epstein files was mishandled, says that Venezuela is really all about regime change, that USAID was a disaster, that she was a guy. Keep in mind, part of why this is so crazy is it's not just about telling the truth. This White House, her employee, Caroline Leavitt, took to the podium to defend every single part of this bullshit at the time as the official part of the administration. And she's admitting that in private, oh my God, we were aghast by it. We were disgusted. We tried to move off of this policy. The prosecutions are political. I mean, how's that going to play in court? How is this going to play? If this is a true court, James Comey, congratulations. You just got acquitted. All right, Letitia James, who they've tried to indict, three more times now?
3 times
from a
failed,
grand jury and can't get it. Good luck, to the prosecutors who are trying to do this. It's just so crazy. I have never seen anything like this in my entire time covering Washington, ever.
It is wild. Let me read. And she, by the way, undercut a number of other policies. She talked about how they need to be more careful with deportations. She said she did not agree with pardoning the violent January 6ers, that she pushed to just do the nonviolent ones and was overruled there. So all kinds of the most core and controversial Trump 2.0 policies, she's effectively undercutting here. Everything from, the day one J6 rioters and pardons up into.
Yeah, Trump posted the stationary one, the ones they're claiming were just fishermen, which it might be. Who knows? I mean, they're not justifying it to anybody else. They're just doing their own thing. Who knows? I know the families came out and said they were fishermen, blah, blah, blah. But Trump posted this on October 14th. The one they're talking about is just a stationary vessel. It was just sitting there doing something.
To Venezuela, where she's just giving the game away that the blowing up of the boats isn't about drugs, it's about regime change. On the political retribution piece, let me read a little bit of this. So she said, quote, "We have a loose agreement that the score settling will end before the first 90 days are over," she said at the time. When that did not happen by August, she told Mr. Whipple that I don't think he's on a retribution tour, but said that Trump was aiming at people who did bad things and coming after him. In some cases, it may look like retribution, and there may be an element of that from time to time. Who would blame him? Not me. And so in terms of...
Well, you can't just target people because they were mean to you.
Just actual real world impact.
You should be disconnected from the Justice Department. They should be doing their own investigations, looking at their own people, coming up with their own evidence. They shouldn't be like, oh, Trump told us to get this list accomplished this week.
Any of those court cases, Tisha James, James Comey, Eric Swalwell, Adam Schiff, there's been all sorts of talk about people they're going to go after on this mortgage fraud bullshit. Those cases will all be undercut to the extent that they had any legs to begin with by this overt admission from the chief of staff that, yes, these are political. This is about retribution. That's what he's doing. So that in and of itself is wild. To undercut J.D. Vance, Trump may not really care that much about that, but to say, oh yeah, of course he converted to Trumpism because it was political, which is obvious. But, here you've got the chief of staff acknowledging what everybody could see, the reality in front of their eyes, calling him a conspiracy theorist, talking about Elon Musk's drug use, all of it. I mean, yeah, it's pretty wild. And the other thing about this saga is the White House participated with all of this. This was authorized. I mean, there's a big glossy photo shoot involved with a bunch of different administration officials. Other officials spoke to this reporter as well. So this whole project, this whole write-up was greenlit by the administration, even though, I would be very surprised if they knew the extent of what Susie Wiles was saying here.
No,
this has been basically since he came into office. It was before his first 90 days were up. They've been doing this long-term overview with Susie Wiles.
Didn't know. I can already. My phone's pinging a little bit here right now.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that in terms of what people around Washington, including people who are. I mean, here's the thing. It's an unspoken rule here in D.C. When you work for somebody, you never make yourself the story. Never. So the White House chief of staff, many chiefs of staff, presidents and others, they don't sit for interviews. Why? Because your job is to execute the agenda of the president. You're never supposed to be the main character ever. That's the job of the principal. I know this sounds like kind of servile, but in a certain way, that's the job, right? That's what you do as a staffer. And so for sitting for 11 interviews here, 11 interviews, and just letting loose about your thoughts.
By the way, Susie Wiles came out and said, oh, well, this is a hit piece. They took me out of context. Here's Caroline Leavitt coming up. They didn't include the full context. This was such a hit piece, and they patched it together, blah, blah, blah.
Hi, Caroline.
morning.
I think Caroline Levitt speaks about it.
Vanity Fair's article on Susie Wiles as a
I'll say a couple of things on that. First of all, as you all saw on Truth Social, President Trump is going to be giving a joint address to, or an address to the nation, not a joint address, an address to the nation tomorrow night, live from the White House here at 9 o'clock Eastern. I know you guys will all be tuning in. It's going to be a really good speech. I was just in the Oval Office with the president discussing it. He's going to talk a lot about the accomplishments over the past 11 months, all that he's done to bring our country back to greatness, and all he continues to plan to do to continue delivering for the American people over the next 3 years. As for the Vanity Fair article, Michael, I'll take your question directly. This is, unfortunately, another example of disingenuous reporting. We have a reporter who took the chief of staff's words wildly out of context, did not include the context those conversations were had within. And then further, I think the most egregious part of this article was the bias of omission that was clearly present. And we see a lot of this when dealing with the media every day. You will leave out important context, leave out comments and facts. You know, many people in this building spoke with that reporter, and those comments were never included in the story, probably because it didn't push this false narrative of chaos and confusion that the reporter was clearly trying to push. So what I'll say about our chief of staff, as you've seen from not just myself, but also the entire cabinet, and a groundswell of support from people on Capitol Hill who don't even work in this building, about how incredible Susie Wiles has been to President Trump, and he's been able to accomplish so much because of
that. Was what that must be what they're telling people to say, because JD Vance was like, you know, we might disagree sometimes, but she's as honest with Trump as she's not a different person when she's talking to me or him or the media, and I'll fight for her. You know, I know that bullshit.
His leadership and his tenacity, but also because of Chief of Staff Wiles' leadership and her ability to effectuate his agenda. So thank you.
That was it. That's all we got. Back to the article.
About how Pam Bondi's an idiot. She said completely whiffed on Epstein. I mean, if the White House chief of staff thinks this, how can we as citizens?
She called Pam Bondi an idiot, saying she gave him the binders, and she said the files were on her desk. There were no files. I don't know why she said that.
Have any confidence in our government. If the White House chief of staff is openly saying that what the president is saying is a lie, is that many cabinet members are idiots or incompetent, is that Doge, which was held up as a central pillar of the administration there at the time, what she was, quote, aghast by it. First of all, what are you doing in that job, lady? What are you even doing? If you think this, you should leave, right? What does it say about you that you think all of this and that you're sticking around to, quote, do something about it? Because you're obviously not doing a very good job. You actually don't have that much influence if that's what you think that you're doing. And then second, I cannot get over how you can just openly admit so many things, which again, we all know are true, but there is a difference legally, first of all, in a court of law to say that you have a political prosecution, but second, like on regime change, that's got to be one of the most consequential policies of the entire Trump administration. And to just come out and be like, our flimsy bullshit pretext is in fact bullshit is amazing. I mean, it's shocking to the character.
Well, and that's, you know, something in a future administration, if you've got Democrats in control, like people need to think about the, you know, potential prosecutions. They clearly are worried about, like with the double tap strike, whether that was legal or not. Obviously, like I think the whole thing is illegal, but they clearly got nervous about that as well, judging by the reaction. So when you have her coming out and publicly undercutting the bullshit legal pretext that they've been using, that's a big problem for Pete Hegseth. That's a big problem for that Admiral, Admiral Bradley, who was kind of thrown under the bus. That's a big problem for all of the SEALs that were involved in this policy. That's a big issue. Let me read the part of the Epstein portion, because this is pretty wild too. So this is about Pam Bondi. She also gets into Trump a little bit with regard to Epstein. So as you mentioned before, Sagar, she says, I think Bondi completely whiffed on appreciating that was a very targeted group that cared about this. First, she gave them binders full of nothingness. Then she said the witness list or the client list was on her desk. There is no client list, and it sure as hell wasn't on her desk. Mr. Vance, by contrast, she said, understood the sensitivity because he himself was a conspiracy theorist, she said. So
that's not true. That's not true. The only thing he's accomplished is making himself. That's not true at all. He's also made his family and friends very rich, and people that he likes.
Again, saying directly, when Pam Bondi told you that this was on her desk, she was lying. There is no client list. It sure as hell was not on her desk. That is what she had to say about that. And then she says that she has read the Epstein documents and acknowledged Trump's name is in them. Quote, we know he's in the file, and he's not in the file doing anything awful. Nothing awful, Sagar. So rest easy there. But neither, apparently, this is one more part on this, neither apparently is Bill Clinton. Asked about Trump's claims going back years that Clinton had visited Epstein Island, Ms. Wiles said, there is no evidence. Asked if there's incriminating evidence about Clinton in the files, as Trump has suggested, she says, the president was wrong about that. So she's saying Trump is lying. Trump is in the files, but not doing anything awful.
Trump says constantly that Clinton went to the island. Doesn't seem to be any proof of that.
And he is lying about what the files contain with regard to Bill Clinton.
It's so crazy, man. I truly have never seen anything like this. The last interview that was anything remotely comparable in my...
Yes, get the yacht. Now's the time to splurge. 100% tax write-off.
opinion, was maybe Steve Bannon in the first 100 days, where he openly trashed Jared Kushner and other members of the administration. Who was it? To the American Prospect? Is that right? It was some like kind of lefty.
I thought it was like New York Magazine.
No, it was a lefty magazine. I remember.
New York Magazine was kind of lefty, but anyway, I don't remember exactly. But yeah,
there was that. But honestly, like Stan McChrystal, he was the general in charge of Afghanistan at the time, and Michael Hastings, the Rolling Stone journalist, ended up being delayed. And McChrystal, what did he say about Obama? He said he was an idiot, something like that. He said some comment about Obama where he was like, he's dumb. Published it, and he was immediately fired. But that was in the old rules. I don't know if that's going to happen now. I have no idea. I mean, how could you ever enter a cabinet meeting again when, I mean, Susie Wiles, who I guess is one of your, technically kind of your boss, is out there just trashing you in the public? It's amazing. But that's the world we live in. Is Kash Patel sitting for interviews about his love life with Stephen Miller's wife, who's dressed casually for some reason? This entire thing, I don't know. I don't know what is happening to this government, but. Yeah, we're being Confederacy. I don't even have words. I'm literally speechless how retarded this is. It's crazy. It's fucking crazy.
So you have the chief of staff. So this is not Lib or Trump's arrangement. No, Trump's.
So they're talking about the weird pictures. Like they all sat around for this Vanity Fair thing, and like took these. Oh shit! What did I just say? Took these pictures. They spoke to multiple people. It wasn't just Susie Wiles, right? They got this is like their spread. There she is. Stephen Himmler. They got this black and white one. There's Himmler, Rubio, Susie Wiles, J.D. Vance, Carolyn Levitt. Like, I don't know. Maybe they thought it was going to be really good. How's Carolyn Levitt faring in the onslaught of questions about the Epstein files? It's pretty clear he wants us to be aggressively offensive when it comes to the issue. They did these close-ups of everybody. It's tough, boys. It's tough.
Chief of staff saying he's lying about the Epstein files. Pam Bondi was lying about the Epstein files, that she disagrees with the deportation.
Saying it's clear he wants us to be offensive on the Epstein files and accuse everybody else of being in them.
Approach, the USAID approach, that Elon Musk, who was handed the keys to the whole freaking government, is a drug addict, that Russ Vought, who still has the keys to the whole government, is a right-wing
left her, the decisions Elon Musk made left her aghast.
That the vice president is a conspiracy.
She was overruled on the, I said this earlier, on the mass pardons of the Gen 6 people. Like, she wanted to pardon any nonviolent offenders, let everybody else go through the legal system, and she was overruled, and they pardoned everybody.
Theorist, what more could you possibly get into this series of interviews? It's pretty wild. I don't know. I mean, I have to think that there would be some, like, there has to be some blowback for this. I mean, especially the parts where she says things about Trump in particular, that he's lying, and that she disagreed with him on the J6 pardons, and, you know, the undercutting.
Or Trump claims he doesn't even drink. She compared him to an alcoholic.
Of the Venezuela policy. That's a live, active, very significant, serious issue. And here she is just like giving the game away on that one. I don't know. It's very different from my impression of her. I didn't know anything about her, but it seemed like she was just this very, we haven't heard from her, that she was very like disciplined and buttoned up. This is
close, yes.
Of that.
Well, you know, maybe
disciplined. That's a really good word to describe her. Like, she's not going to go out. She's not going to do an interview. She's not going to let anything slip. Very tight-lipped, and stays kind of out of the spotlight.
Narcissist around Trump, I guess. You know, that's possible.
I also wonder how he'll, you know, he's very against alcohol at all.
Right.
I also wonder how he'll react to being characterized as having the personality of an alcoholic.
His brother
I wonder
died
how that will land with him. Yeah, I know.
Gonna go over well? No. Whatever. All right, more consequential news. We got Juan David Rojas standing by to talk about Chile.
Maybe it's all a deep state plant. The Jews did it.
On Kilmar Abrego Garcia. In this account,
I just wanted to see what this was.
I am as surprised as you are. We've done a lot of videos about this one apparently normal guy, and we will happily stop and go back to cracking wise about Mr. Beast or Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively or Jake Paul just as soon as the government stops doing crazy.
Oh, Jake Paul's getting ready to fight, right? On Friday? On Netflix. Jake Paul's.
From snatching him off the street back in March to threatening to deport him to a bunch of random African countries to lying to federal judges, this case just keeps getting wilder. So what is it about this guy that makes the Trump administration so mad? And what the hell is a scrivener? And who the hell is this rando nunk pro tunk anyway? By now, we all know the story of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He crossed into the U.S. in 2011 when he was 16 and lived a quiet life with his brother in Maryland until 2019. Then he was picked up by local cops in the parking lot of Home Depot for loitering and handed over to immigration officials. Immigration Judge David Jones believed Abrego's testimony that he feared being killed by gangs trying to extort his family's pupusa business in El Salvador if he was sent back to his native country. But asylum claims have to be made within 1 year of arrival. So instead of deporting him, the judge issued an order withholding removal to El Salvador. Abrego was then released onto what's called the non-detained docket. In a 2001 case called Zodvitas v. Davis, the Supreme Court ruled that the government cannot indefinitely detain a non-citizen when there's no plan to deport him imminently. They said it violates the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment to keep someone in jail just because there's no country willing or able to take him. The default is 90 days, after which the government has to let people go as long as they agree to keep ICE informed of their whereabouts and check regularly. And while there is a legal framework to deport non-citizens to third countries, we mostly didn't do it because it seemed kind of cruel and pointless to dump people in a country they have no connection to. But then Trump got elected on a promise to throw millions of people out of the U.S., and the non-detained docket full of non-citizens who'd been released into the community was functionally a list of targets for Homeland Security to snatch off the street. And that's exactly what happened to Abrego. For years, he'd been living with his wife and raising his kids and working as a union sheet metal laborer, but on March 12th, federal agents pulled him over with his little boy in the car, told him that his status had changed, and threatened to put the child in foster care if Abrego's wife didn't show up and take him in 10 minutes. Within 3 days, Abrego was on a plane headed for El Salvador, despite Judge Jones's order saying that could not happen. He was imprisoned in Sikot, a notorious gulag where he and hundreds of men deported along with him were beaten and tortured for months. Abrego's wife, Jennifer Vasquez Sora, filed a habeas corpus petition, which is an ancient legal writ effectively asking the court to order the government to release someone held in custody. It literally means produce the body. The case landed on the docket of Maryland federal judge Paul Exinas, who spent months trying to get the government to bring this guy back. First, lawyers for the Justice Department admitted that Abrego had been deported in error, but almost immediately they pivoted to claiming that Abrego was a dangerous criminal who was exactly where he should be and who would
They started out saying, oh, it's an error. Then, oh, no.
never walk the streets of the United States again.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia is an illegal alien, MS-13 gang member, and foreign terrorist who was deported back to his home country.
For months, the DOJ told Judge Exinas that it was impossible for the U.S. government to get Abrego back, and they stuck to that line right up until June 6, when he miraculously showed up at the border and was arrested on charges of human trafficking in Tennessee. At that point, the government moved to dismiss the habeas case on the ground that they had, at long last, produced Abrego, and that would have been extremely convenient, since it would have put an end to that contempt inquiry Judge Exinas was conducting into all the apparently untrue things the government told her about how Abrego wound up on that plane and how it was simply impossible to bring him back. Judge Exinas said, hell no, and that inquiry is ongoing. And right about here, you may want to Google the Chekhov's gun principle. We are living in some very weird times, and so now is probably a good moment to wipe away all your personal and private information off the internet. Your cell phone number, home address, email address, private social media accounts, and tons of sensitive data are shockingly easy to purchase by anybody online, but malicious actors cannot hurt you if they can.
Listen to this shit. The Salty Goat on YouTube, Salty Goat 17 just posted, the Brown shooter, the Brown University shooter, he says, this is a Twitter post. I've seen a couple people on here say it, and after watching it, I have to agree. This person of interest definitely walks like a leftist. Watch it, and you'll see exactly what I mean. They have no idea who the shooter is, but they walk like a leftist. What the fuck does that even mean, dude? Talk about reaching. Holy fuck.
Completed hundreds of takedowns for me. I could never do this myself, so thank you to Incogni for weeks of work and adding me to over 40 suppression lists. And Incogni will continue to conduct ongoing removals because even if the broker removes your data once, they can collect it and publish it again. So if online privacy is important to you, give Incogni a try. If you scan the code on screen or click on the link in the description, you'll get 60% off their annual unlimited plan, or try Incogni risk-free for 30 days. If you decide you want to keep it, you'll still get the 60% discount, so long as you use our code LEGALEAGLE, one word. So
MIT's professor, a leading professor specializing in nuclear fusion at MIT, was shot to death in his home last night. I hate to go into Jew space lasers already, but that sounds like a very Israeli type of deal there. Holy fuck.
sign up for Incogni or we will see you in court. Down in Tennessee, where Abrego was criminally charged, prosecutors appear to have tried to use the threat of deportation to extort Abrego into pleading guilty in that case. After the court released him on bail, prosecutors offered him a deal. If he would immediately plead guilty, they would deport him to Costa Rica. They produced a letter from Costa Rica's public security minister, Mario Zamora Cordero, attesting that the country would accept him as a refugee and not send him back to El Salvador. If he refused to plead guilty, though, the offer of deportation to Costa Rica would be off the table forever. Now, I would be remiss if I did not point out that, if true, that is a gross abuse of both the legal and immigration processes. Deportation is not supposed to be punitive, and it's certainly not supposed to be used to extort a defendant to plead guilty in court. So instead of taking this dirty deal, Abrego filed a second habeas case.
I can't live stream Netflix fight. If I go to my Netflix while I'm streaming it, it just shows a black screen.
with Judge Axinas, who entered an order barring the government from deporting him from the continental United States. When he left the jail in Tennessee, Abrego turned himself into the immigration facility in Baltimore and was immediately taken into ICE custody. Having arbitrarily refused to send him to Costa Rica, where he was and is still willing to go, the government sent him a series of letters threatening to deport him to a list of seemingly random African countries. On August 22nd, ICE sent him a letter saying that they were about to remove him to Uganda. Abrego responded the next day by saying that he feared being persecuted in Uganda and requested to be sent to Costa Rica. On September 5th, ICE informed Abrego that it was sending him to Eswatini. A week later, the government of that country said that it had not received any communication regarding Abrego. Now remember, they can't hold you in custody if they have no realistic possibility of deporting you. And so Judge Axinas kept asking DHS and DOJ what they were actually doing to deport Abrego. Next, DHS said it was going to send him to Ghana, except as soon as that story broke, Ghana's foreign minister said on X, Ghana is not accepting Abrego Garcia. He cannot be deported to Ghana. This has been directly and unambiguously conveyed to U.S. authorities. Oopsie. Then, on October 24th, ICE said it was deporting Abrego to Liberia. They finally found a country in Africa willing to take him. But there's a little problem, because under 8 U.S. Code Section 1231, a deportee gets to designate the country he wants to be removed to. And for months, Abrego has been shouting, I designate Costa Rica. So the government had to explain.
He's been trying to go to Costa Rica if that's what they're going to do.
To Judge Axinas why they weren't going to send him to Costa Rica like he asked, and that explanation was not convincing. First, the government filed a declaration by John Cantu, an acting assistant director for ICE's enforcement and removal operations. He said that Costa Rica's offer to repatriate Abrego came with undisclosed strings attached, that the Department of State assesses that the government of Costa Rica would not accept the transfer of Mr. Abrego Garcia to Costa Rica at this time without further negotiations, and that the Republic of Liberia is at present the only state willing to accept Mr. Abrego Garcia without further negotiations and additional commitments from the United States. But they submitted that declaration under seal so no one in, say, the Costa Rican Public Security Ministry would find out about it. Smelling a rat, Judge Axinas ordered Cantu to show up in court and testify, and unsurprisingly, Cantu was a terrible witness because even though he put his name on that declaration saying that he knew for a fact that Costa Rica wasn't willing to accept Abrego, under oath he admitted that he had no idea whether the State Department had even spoken to Costa Rica at all. Asked what he meant when he referred in his declaration to certain understandings, he said, I don't know. What did he mean by contingencies? I do not know. Interim developments? I don't know. Cantu admitted that he had a 5-minute Zoom call with a lawyer from the State Department.
Jesus Christ.
What to say, and then he put those words in the declaration and signed his name to it. Cantu had
So he has no idea what he's declaring to the court. He was just told to declare these things.
no idea if Costa Rica had actually backed out of the original deal. And as it turns out, it hadn't. Costa Rican Security Minister Zamora Cordero told multiple news outlets that there had been no communication with the U.S. State Department and no change to the offer to accept Abrego Garcia. But there was yet another problem with DH's plan to deport Abrego, and that problem goes back to 2019. So you remember when I told you that in 2019, Immigration Judge David Jones issued that order withholding removal saying that Abrego couldn't be deported to El Salvador? The government has been treating that as a final order of removal, but it actually isn't. At the risk of sounding glib, a final order of removal says get out, and an order withholding removal says but not to your native country. And here, no one is quite sure whether the get out part ever happened. If there was a final order of removal in the file 6 years ago, it isn't there now. And without a final order of removal, DHS cannot deport Abrego, which is one of the many reasons Judge Axinas finally granted the habeas petition. On December 11th, the judge ordered the Department of Homeland Security to release Abrego from custody because you can't deport someone without a final order of removal. The DOJ argued that the final order is implied by the existence of a withholding order, but the Fourth Circuit and
it's just implied.
Supreme Court have said otherwise, and even if he could be removed, DHS would still have a Zavitas problem because clearly the government has no actual plan to deport him. As the court said, if DHS had wished to remove him, they certainly could have as early as August 21, 2025 to Costa Rica. Instead, they serially notified Abrego while he sat in ICE custody of his expulsion to Uganda, then Eswatini, then Ghana, despite the fact that none of these countries were ever viable options, and at least two had not even been asked to take him. And all the while, they took no steps to remove Abrego Garcia to the country which had offered to take him, Costa Rica. Obviously, the point of this exercise wasn't to deport him, since he's willing to leave for Costa Rica today. The point is to send him someplace maximally unpleasant where he doesn't want to go.
That's the point, right? To send him somewhere he doesn't want to go. He's been bad press for them.
Keep that in mind when you see stuff like this.
When he becomes deportable, he is going to get deported, and he needs to be deported now.
That's Greg Bavino, who calls himself the Commander-at-Large of Customs and Border Patrol. He's a character, but the fact of the matter is that DHS could have deported Abrego any time during the past 4 months. It chose not to because Costa Rica's not cruel enough. And so Judge Axinas ordered ICE to let him go home to his wife and kids. Which
they're not even asking. They don't care. They're just like, oh, strings are attached. We can't do Costa Rica.
Should have been the end of the matter. Let the man spend Christmas with his family, but it wasn't. On December 11th, the very same day that Judge Axinas granted Abrego's habeas petition, he got 2 pieces of mail from the immigration court in Baltimore. The first was an order signed by an immigration judge named Philip Taylor. It noted a, quote, scrivener's error in the 2019 order withholding removal. A scrivener's error is like a typo or a clerical error. It goes back to a time when legal documents were written out by hand. You can usually go back and fix an obvious goof in a legal document. It's not a big deal, but that's not what happened here. Instead, Judge Taylor purported to correct a scrivener's error in Judge Jones's 2019 immigration ruling by inserting a final order of removal in the original document.
Oh, this was a clerical error, so I'm just going to throw in a final removal order in there to fix it.
and he purported to backdate that
God damn, they can always find some fucking piece of shit judge to do some shady shit and backdated it.
language 6 years. See where it says these corrections are hereby issued nunc pro tunc? Nunc pro tunc is Latin. It literally means now for then. It's a way of treating something as if it took legal effect earlier, and it happens all the time, but not like this. The immigration judge is just using, or some might say abusing, these legal doctrines to magic up an order of removal where none existed. The second piece of mail was an order from ICE instructing Abrego to report at 8 a.m. to the Baltimore office, where he'd presumably be taken back into custody now that the scrivener's error had been corrected, nunc pro tunc. Once again, Abrego's lawyers raced back to Judge Xenis with a motion for temporary restraining order. And
they're trying everything just because this guy caused bad press for them. They just want to make his life horrible. This is the vindictive side of Trump.
Once again, the judge issued emergency relief just a few hours later, telling DHS not to deport this guy. She consistently referred to Judge Taylor's order in sarcasm quotes, and she pointed out that backdating the removal order nunc pro tunc wouldn't help DHS because they would still have a Zadvitas problem, only worse. Remember, under Zadvitas, the government gets 90 days after the removal order to hold a non-citizen and figure out where to deport him. Hot tub time machining the removal language back to 2019 only means that the 90 days expired almost 6 years ago, and so, for the time being, Abrego is with his family. He checked in at the ICE facility in Baltimore and walked out a free man. An ordinary guy fought the system and won, at least for a little while.
Estoy aquí como un hombre libre y siempre recuérdenme así, con la cabeza en alto.
I stand before you.
They just hate this guy, yes.
And I want you to remember me this way, with my head held up high.
Like the man said, keep your head up, and don't ever let anyone tell you the law doesn't matter.
Now, all this highlights why it's so important to get a great lawyer when you're dealing with your own case. Now, after I started this channel, every week I get hundreds of comments and emails from viewers who are dealing with legal problems. And they'd ask, can you help me find a lawyer? How do I know if this attorney is any good? And there's a massive gap in our justice system. Is that people don't know how to find
guys, you don't need a legal team. You need the Eagle team. I'll do the thing for them. So call if you need their attorney. I'm out, guys. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you want to support the show, that's how I pay the bills. I don't have sponsors or big enough audience to do ad revenue. You can use this link. Send some money my way. I know it's Christmas time, money's short, so if you can't, you can't. We'll make it back up next year or something. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I'll see you on the next one. Have a good night. Love you. See you. Bye. Be back tomorrow, probably.
I can tell you this about if this douche.
We'll cover something else.
This particular show, you don't have the fork and balls to call out the people on this planet by name and tell them exactly who they are and tell them the rest of the world who they are. You don't have the fork and balls. You don't have the balls.
Okay, Scott.
Here we go, I think I started some shit. Listen off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Listen off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet.
And they say that I'm a lunatic. Well, listen, bitch, I came equipped with a quick wit and a 6th sense for the stupid shit. Where my true believers? Y'all need Jesus. Praise the Lord, head to the extreme. All these false fucking prophets who profit off of gossip. Worshipping Trump's cock and begging for a throat deposit. Swinging fucking meat hammers like Thor in a thong. He's strapped to the shaft, beating his chest like he's King Kong. Starving for attention, I'ma make your gut burst. I'll be your Huckleberry.
I'm reprinting my 12-inch squishy pickle holder. I put a 1/4 of a millimeter clearance built in, and I'm reprinting the bottom a little bit thicker, so hopefully that area don't break, and hopefully it'll be like I want it strong enough to where when you pick it up, it doesn't fall apart. Because you have the experience of opening the gifts, right? And I'll put a bow on it. But I also don't want it so tight, like people are breaking it to open it.
Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best.
I made it a millimeter thicker in the overlay and then gave a 1/4 millimeter on both sides, so a 1/2 millimeter clearance. We'll see what happens.
Open his closet, I found some of his meat rock.
Tomorrow, when it's done.
And then I flew through the roof. I found myself in orbit strapped to an F-16. High on amphetamine with Trump in between. Put on a light coat of baby oil and saluted the troops. He tapped me on the shoulder and said, "This is gonna be it." Whoa. Stop. What? I'll get my files. What are you doing? Stop. Hold on. Fucking stop. Dude, come on. Seriously. My mom's an alcoholic. Oh, give me a... Oh, my God. Damn it.
Here we go, I think I started some shit. Listen off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Listen off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better
buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Round 3. Down goes Nino. Please say it isn't so. Got him backed up on the ropes, trying to ram it down his throat. Now things are getting rocking. He was doing so well.
No, I'll pick it up tomorrow sometime, probably. At some point.
Frog News Network do no damn research. They rework and copy on Cox that came first. 9th inning, second string, and they acting like they know hitters. Assholes throwing bullshit, sending runs to the shitter. All this nonsense on my conscience, it's hard to sleep at night. Who the fuck is in my window with this time of the night? These parasites, these leeches, with all their secret meetings, teaching all you fucking cretins about baby-eating heathens. Believing in reason with no meaning is bullshit. Will Bird motherfuckers out here busting the grifts. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the bets, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the bets, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet.
You don't have those guts because you're a pussy. You're a pussy wearing aviator glasses in your mother's basement. And I won't even give out your dime store handle because that's really pathetic.
Good night, guys.